Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the NXTGEN Racing GT3 League Season 4, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round 5 of 8 in the championship, as our drivers have made the way to Germany for the second endurance race round of the season. And while we're here in Germany, and you're probably guessing it already, Germany plus endurance, that can only mean one thing, and you've got it exactly right. We are here at the Nürburg city circuit of the Nürburgring, and in particular the Nürburgring Gesamtstrecke, or the combined layout, for what is expected to be an absolute thriller of a round of racing. This is a layout which is rightly regarded as racing nirvana for those of you who are motorsport purists, where a circuit consisting of over 100 corners, which will see our drivers bringing together some of the best elements of the Grand Prix layout of the circuit, along with the Nordschleife loop, or the Green Hell as it's nicknamed, infamously nicknamed by the likes of Jackie Stewart. It is a course that is unrelenting, and indeed with its combination of corners, straight and braking zones and everything in between, there's not a single aspect of a driver's ability, not a car setup that is put to the ultimate test here, and it's just as much about survival and making it to the end of each and every lap as it is about having outright pace of victory. And indeed sometimes it's all about being calm, cool and consistent in order to get the car home and bring home a major result, and that's going to bode well for our drivers here today. But at the same time as well, they'll be mindful for the fact that those who can push the pace to the maximum, well, they may be able to achieve something special here, and indeed get their championship campaign off to a brilliant second half of the season start. More the fact now we are into that second half with round number 5 of 8 today. But as we get ready to go racing over the colossal 24.15 kilometre length of tarmac that lies in front of us, we welcome you to this broadcast, and would like to let you know this broadcast is being brought to you live by 3 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, by the 2 official NXTGEN Racing media platforms, or what is YouTube. You go to youtube.com and search for NXTGEN Racing, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via YouTube. We can see the chat there. Alternatively, those of you on facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing, we say hello to you guys and girls in the Facebook chat. However, there's also the third media platform, the unofficial broadcast, which is being brought to you live from Twitch. If you go to twitch.tv/TX141, you can be tuning in there. And hello to you guys and girls in Twitch. And as we get ready to go racing, who is TX141, I hear you ask? Well, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit of the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I will bring you all your racing action today, indeed the entirety of the season. And speaking of today, let's tell you a little bit about our schedule. We've only got one event on the schedule for today, and it is our endurance race. And as you can see from the time set in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1. UTC +1, in just shy of 12 minutes time, we're making our way to the grid for our race for today. 120 minutes, no qualifying session. How will the grid be set, I hear you ask? We'll come to that very shortly, but indeed the one race on the clock, and therefore all of our drivers absolutely eager to get underway. But before we get underway, let's remind you of our calendar thus far and what still lies in wait. For today is the 23rd of August, and we've made our way into the second half of the season. But we started off about 2 months ago on the 28th of June with the one and only Sebring International Raceway in the state of Florida, kicking us off with a sprint and feature combination that was not to be forgotten about. Indeed, it was the likes of Chris Shorter and Stephan Wessels at the front of the field, absolutely charging on strong for their respective CSA teams. But then in a week from that, 2 weeks from that, we made our way over to Japan for the first of a Japanese double-header, with the second sprint and feature combination being at the Fuji International Speedway. Now, on the 12th of July, it was Stephan Wessels who made himself known right at the front of the field and established himself as an early favourite in the Gold Class Championship. But we also had plenty of battles in the Silver and Bronze classes as well, with the Bronze class seeing Jordan Baybois make a great revival after a difficult season opener. And indeed, also on top of that, we got to see in the silver class the likes of Russell Fowler also take the fight to their peers. But then in round number 3 on the 26th of July, we made our way to Suzuka, and remaining in Japan for the conclusion of our Japanese doubleheader, we got to see that in our first endurance race round of the season, magic happen by the plenty. In the gold class, it was Gavin Garner who pulled off a strategic masterclass in order to finish ahead of Stephan Wessels on the top step of the podium. In the silver class, meanwhile, it was Sergio Gonzalez Martin who pulled off an absolute brilliant piece of strategy in order to usurp the rest of the field and finish 12 seconds clear. And in the bronze class, we got to see the battle of the two drivers who perhaps would never be expected to win a race unless magic were to happen, and that was Daniel Fritz versus Elwin Sykes. And in the end, the only bronze driver who wasn't to make a colossal mistake in the race, it was CSA's own Elwin Sykes who pulled off the win there, his first win of his NXTGEN Racing GT3 League career. And what a moment it was, a special moment for the South African, and indeed what a day to wrap up there with all the racing. Then round number 4, last time out, back on the 9th of August, first, we are back in the United States for the Road America course in the state of Wisconsin. And then in the picturesque countryside, we heard the roar of GT3 class machinery in a sprint and feature combination there with plenty of battling from start to finish. And the return of Chris Shorter to the grid in the gold class saw the CSA driver absolutely dominate at the front of the field. But meanwhile, in the silver class, it was also a phenomenal performance from Russell Fowler, a perfect performance, in fact, picking up the maximum possible point score, which has seen him gain major ground on his rival, Sergio Gonzalez Martin, and we'll come to that very shortly. And in the bronze class, Daniel Fritz absolutely driving home some major points, and where it has definitely served to shake up the championship standings, which we'll see very shortly. But after today, on the 6th of September, we make it our way over to United Kingdom for the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit in round number 6, a sprint and feature doubleheader once again. And then on the penultimate round in round number 7 on the 13th of September, with the rounds becoming weekly as we stop rotating with the ongoing Proto GT3 Championship, which comes to a conclusion as of next week. On the 13th of September, we'll make our way up to Canada for a classic at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, but you will know and love it referred to as Motorsport. The fast flying corners await our drivers there. And in our final round of the season, it'll be our third and final endurance race round, and where better to go for a season finale than the Le Mans circuit, also known as the Circuit des 24 Hours du Mans. And that'll be on the 20th of September. We bring the curtain down and announce our class and teams championship winners. Now, speaking of championships, let's give you an update on the points then going into tonight. And we start off with the gold class in the Drivers' Championship. And here we can see it is a 13-point advantage to Stephan Wessels with Gavin Gardner behind in P2. And right now it looks like it's becoming a titanic battle between the two big names at the top, with Akram Zanoun in P3 on 109 points and looking to keep ahead of the rest of the field and close down the top two. However, he's got to be wary of the fact that he does have Chris T. Shorter, who's inching closer round after round. And indeed now on 82 points after his return, it does seem as though Chris Shorter is in the run here to try and get back into contention for the top of the championship, with 10-point advantage over Matt Shorter, fellow family member there, and they complete your top 5. Outside the top 5, based on result pound back only, it's Victor Shimara there on 72 points, with Benjamin McCluskey a further 3 points behind, and it's a further 3 points to Gianni Tahar in P8, with a single point over Jonathan Cook, who won't be in attendance today. I believe he's celebrating or having the second part of his birthday celebrations, with his birthday being yesterday, but he's out for a meal tonight, although he may be tuning in, and hello to you if so, and happy birthday once again for yesterday, Jonathan. And then in P10 there, a third point behind is Gaz Williams. Indeed, the bottom half of the top 10 could not be closer, and the top half, whilst they're spread currently, they're inching closer by the round. Outside the top 10 in P11, on 38 points, it's Adam Delman, a sizable gap to the top 10, and he's got to be aware of the fact he has Miguel Gutierrez Garcia only 3 points behind, and a further 3 points to debutant last time out from Racing Lab Am. It was none other than Eric Rosev there, who picked up the fastest lap in the feature race, and definitely trying to mix things up with Team CSA at the front of the field. Jan Crack P14, and it's Jamie Dory completes the gold standings, but as we come onto the Silver Drivers' Championship, here we can see Russell Fowler on 154 points, now 1 point clear, and he's leapt into the lead ahead of Sergio Gonzalez Martin. But indeed, 1 point between the two of them. It is a colossal battle at the front of the field, but that perfect score for Russell Fowler last time out proving important as the rounds continue to wind down. Tristan Engelstad, meanwhile, in P3, doing very well to keep the top 2 within arm's reach, but he's got to be wary of the fact he has got a close rivalry building with Lee Horn, who's a further 15 points behind, and then Derek Kamano a further 7 points off there in P5. Will the gap between Kamano and Ben Bettyworth now standing at 15 points, and will the delta between the two of them there stand about the same as it previously has been. Nestor de la Fuente, meanwhile, in P7 on 74 points, still trying to keep Alfonso F. Marin behind, who's a further 4 off, with Tom Bingham and Jack Barker completing your top 10. And Matthew Addy, P11 there, best of the rest, outside the top 10, 8 points clear of Paul Scott, where a sizable 30-point gap to Stefan Albanese in P13, and Luke Eaglen there completing the standings in P14, and looking to try and pick up some more points as of today after his debut last time out. But now we come on to the bronze class, and here we can see Daniel Fritz leading the way, taking the championship lead for the first time this season by almost 30 points there, 28 to be precise, over Elwyn Sykes, and these two definitely shine their masterclass now and being given the chance to rise, albeit Sean Scudder bringing home some of the fastest points in the class as of last time out, given the fact he picked up pole position and also the fastest lap in the feature race, but the results not going his way in the race themselves, and therefore in P3 only a point of his fellow CSA driver, but Scudder looking to try and get things back on track. The same could be said for Jordan Baywild, but bad luck has seemed to plague the Frenchman, and he's in P4 on 109 points, with then Alexander Rogenbach in P5, picking up his season best performance last time out, and well, on 96 points now, he's 3 clear of Nigel Stock, with Davide Favo, Jorge Santos, Craig Tillotson, and Wesley Lewin completing the top 10. And I do believe that Craig Tillotson not able to make tonight, unfortunately, but he'll be watching it from the sidelines, which is great to hear, and I hope you're doing well, Craig, if you are tuning in currently. And best of SP11 at John Meredith there, the best part of what is 21 points off of the top 10, and he's only ahead of Mark Sykes based on result count, back with both drivers having difficult rounds of the season thus far, and then we're looking to try and put that misfortune to bed. Matthew Sheraton P13 on 31 points. He's 11 clear of James Mansfield, with Josh Brown P15 on 18 points, and then Daniel Stimman and Jake Pitt completing your bronze championship standings. And lastly, we come to the Teams Championship, and here we can see the battle at the top is closing, with Chris Shorter Academy Pink, or CSA Pink, only 13 points clear of KFM Motorsport Yellow, and the sister KFM Motorsport team of Red is a further 4 points behind. However, it'd be rude for us to say that Performance Link Esports are out of it. They're definitely not out of it, in the fact that only a further 7 points behind than Chris Shorter Academy Blue in P5 on 210 points, where they're trying to stay within that reach of the top 4 and doing very well so far, with Quad Dash Racing a further 20 points behind, and it does seem as though our top 5 right now starting to break away from the rest of the field, but then again the battle for P6 it could not be closer, because off of Quad Dash Racing a further 4 points behind are both Chris Shorter Academy Green and NXTGEN Team Pink. The only difference between the two teams being on result count back, and a further 3 points behind is NXTGEN Team Purple. Cresta Motorsport round off the top 10 on 180 points, and there's a sizable gap of 85 points to NXTGEN Racing Team Red in P11, but behind the best of the rest team there is FR20 Sim Racing, with Aztec Racing and Meredith Racing completing the standings. So now we come to our circuit for today, and it is the Nürburgring Combined, but the particular layout to which we are running is the Gesamtstrecke VLN. Gesamtstrecke translated approximately into Combined in English, and this circuit located near the city of Nürburg in the Ahrweiler state of the Rhineland-Palatinate of Germany. It is a circuit like no other. Now, the one thing about this circuit, which is perhaps not evident from the circuit map provided by iRacing.com, thank you to them for their brilliant circuit map, and with it, of course, the brilliant simulator, is the fact that this circuit is naturally extremely narrow. Indeed, overtaking around here only really comes about on the Grand Prix loop, of which we're running a shortened layout of the Grand Prix loop, essentially the touring car layout, which will see our drivers make their way on through the Mercedes arena and then to the first hairpin that takes them onto the Wiedel chicane straight, and then we'll make our way onto the Nordschleife loop, of which we're running the full portion of it. And around there, we'll overtake and we'll come if a driver makes a mistake, otherwise our drivers need to look to stay close as possible to one another and try and make the overtake down the Dottinger High, the extended back straight, which wraps up the lap. And well, we could walk you through the lap right now, but we're going to save it for when we do go racing and ride on board with one of our drivers during the race session itself. But you see there are plenty of household name corners, and whether it be the Yokohama S chicane or the hairpin as it's properly known nowadays, in the fact that we are not running the intersecting layout, which is sometimes run, and also the Mercedes arena there on the GP loop, but also you do have the household names on the Nordschleife loop, including the Flugplatz corner, the fast right-hander that comes out of Quiddelbacher. We've also got later on Arenberg, also much further up the lap, Bergvert, the corner that does run it into the long uphill straight section, which precedes the Caracola Carousel, and also the downhill run through Flansgarden Irons, and then going on to the Dottinger High itself, we have the Geigenkopf corner, which brings the lap to an effective close. So plenty of corners here for our drivers to get acquainted with, and well, plenty of corner names for us to remember here in the commentary booth. We'll do our best. But as for rules, this is a fixed setup series with setups provided ahead of each round, and drivers are permitted to change their car up to round 5, so up to the end of today. We'll forfeit 50 points in doing so, and we do believe that Mark Sykes is the only car change on the grid today. He's switching from the Ferrari 488 Evo to what is the BMW M4. Driver class-wise, they were finalised as the conclusion of round 3, so any new drivers, of which we've got 3 on the grid today, they'll be assigned based on their previous class in the GT3 League, or if they're not previously known, they'll be assigned by default to the Gold class and demoted down if needed after the round. Qualifying-wise, there is no qualifying session for this round, so how exactly do we set the grid, I hear you ask? Well, firstly, for our endurance race today, the race shall commence via a rolling start with a designated green flag zone, and that green flag zone is the start-finish straight of the GP loop, and drivers will have 3 fast repairs available should they pick up any damage. Grid order, meanwhile, is set on a class reverse grid based on the latest championship standings, so we'll have the gold class starting ahead of the silver class, followed up by the bronze class. There's going to be an approximate 5-second gap between each of the classes, and the lowest placed driver in the respective championship will start at the front of the respective class. Unless they're making their debut today, then they'll be starting at the back of the class, so that they don't gain an unfair advantage. Now, in terms of pit stops, our drivers are mandated to make at least 1 pit stop, but they must take on fuel during that pit stop and change all 4 tyres at least once, and they may pick up a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 30 or more instant points. But we come on to our racing then, because that's enough rules, regulation, everything in between, and we are only moments away here from going green flag racing with just a minute to go in this final practice warm-up session, and we see Quad Dash Racing's Tristan Engelstad there making his way on and down and through and on towards the next sequence of quarters. But as he does, we will quickly introduce, we've got 2 new silver class drivers here today, including Paul Williams for Speed9 Esports, albeit running a next-gen racing livery there, but I do believe entered the Speed9 Esports, as is the team he does normally represent when he does race in a good number of our leagues. And we welcome him to the grid today. And we also welcome a returning name and a fan favourite as well, a great good friend, as we see here, Jochen Siegert making his way on around, and as he comes charging on through there and up towards the carousel, we look forward to seeing how he gets on in his favourite GT3, the BMW M4, the car that's always proven potent in his capable hands. Well, he gets set and welcome to them both. They'll both be in the silver class, and then we do have Joe Newman for Empire Motorsport running in the Audi R8 GT3 Gold Class driver today, and the Briton will be looking to try and make an impact as soon as possible in a car that's very few and far between on the grid. We look forward to seeing how he can make it work in the Gold Class. So there are all the new drivers, but we transition our way to the grid. It's time for our race. So our drivers make their way onto the grid. This is how they'll line up for our race for today. Jamie Dory takes overall and gold pole position for Next Gen Racing at Team Pink, joined on the front row by Team Racing Netherlands' Jan Grag. Then on row at number 2, it is Gianni Tahar for Quad Dash Racing, who is joined by Benjamin McCluskey for Next Gen Racing Team Purple. Behind them on row number 3, it'll be Victor Chamorro for Kevin Motorsport Yellow, who is joined by CSA Blues' Chris Shorter. And then Akram Zanoon starting P7 there for Kevin Motorsport Red, and joining on row number 4 is Gavin Carter for Next Gen Racing Team Pink. And then wrapping up the gold class starting P9 from the back of the class is Stephan Wessels, your championship leader for CSA Pink. We then come onto the silver class, and it'll be on pole position for Made for Racing's Jack Barker, ahead of row number 6's pair of Tom Bingham, and for Performance Esports and Kevin Motorsport Red's Alfonso Marin. And then behind them on row at number 7, it'll be the pair of Nestor de la Fuente for Kevin Motorsport Yellow and Kevin Motorsport Red's Derek Camano. On row number 8, it's Lee Horn for Next Gen Racing and Quad Dash Racing's Tristan Engelstad, with Sergio Gonzalez starting P17 for Kevin Motorsport Yellow, and he's joined by Performance Link Esports for Russell Fowler. And then Paul Williams for Speed9 Esports and Jochen Siegert also for Speed9 Esports, albeit a little bit glitched there on our screen. They'll be completing your final row of the silver class as they yet to compete in the championship. Then, starting on what is the 11th row of the grid, it's your bronze pole sitter of Mark Sykes for Next Gen Racing Team Red. He's joined by Wesley Lewin for CSA Pink, Jorge Santos and CSA Blues' Davide Favo starting behind him on row number 12. Row number 13 is going to go to Nigel Stock for Crest Autosport and Alex Rogenbach, the privateer, with row 14 being completed by Jordan Baywa and also CSA Blues' Sean Scooter. Then on the final complete row of the grid, it's Elwin Sykes starting P29 for CSA Green and Daniel Fritz Whiskianos Racing. And Joe Newman, he's been placed right at the back of the field, P31 for Empire Motorsport. And I believe he has been assigned as, a bronze class driver on the grid, but we believe he is a gold class driver, and well, that's the way we're going to treat things as we get ready to go racing, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll all our drivers right now making their way on behind the safety car, and it's going to be a partial formation lap, given the fact that all of our drivers heading on down the Dottinger Hummer. But as they come on down here, well, Jamie Dory right now, the lead car, the McLaren MP4 12C, only one of them on the grid this season, and we look forward to seeing how it gets on when it does go green flag racing. And we do know that Dory is very capable in this car, but he's also had some bad luck with it in terms of the fact the car is one of those ones where you have to drive it constantly on edge, but in doing so you put yourself at risk of making a mistake, and it's very easy to do so, particularly when you're at the Nordschleife loop here today. But as our golds make the way across the brow there, meanwhile we look a little bit further back and we ride on board in particular with none other than Lee Horn, the Next Gen Racing and Porsche 992 driver, continuing to try and find some major points in the championship in a silver class that is absolutely beset with close battle in action from start to finish in every race. Well, Lee Horn right now just taking it easy and getting those brakes and tyres up to temperature, but as they make their way on down underneath the Bilstein Bridge, we also do look briefly back to Alex Rogenbach here, the Lamborghini Huracan driver, as he gets himself set, picking up his best results of the season last time out. But meanwhile, from them, we look to the very front of the field here, ladies and gentlemen, as Jamie Dory's about to get ready to go green flag racing. And well, as he does, the safety car will gradually peel off into the pits, and we await for him to dictate the pace onto the start-finish straight. And it's lights out and away we go for our second endurance race of the season here at the Nürburgring as Jamie Dory charges his way down towards turn number 1. It's a good start with Jan Crack on the outside looking for a move, he can't find it. Meanwhile, look at Akram Zanoon making it 4 wide here under braking into the Yokohama Hess hairpin. And as they come through and go up into the Mercedes arena, Gavin Gardner meanwhile going out a little bit deep there and therefore having to back off. But Akram Zanoon going all in as Chris Shorter tries to come back at him now in the run down into turn number 3. Cold tyres here are going to make this very difficult, but still they'll try and manage. Zanoon going from outside to inside here, still side by side inside with Shorter. A little bit of contact between the two of them. Shorter goes round as a result. Now, was that contact? Our camera angle would say yes, as meanwhile it's going to be a double whammy. Also for Stephan Wessels there, who gets collected with Chris Shorter's wayward car. So CSA not having a great start to the race at all there after 4 corners. But meanwhile, as we can see here, the Silvercast Ray John and Tom Bingham from Constate Esports holds on to lead the Silvercast, with Lee Horn coming up behind him very quickly. As meanwhile, Wessels and Shorter have both had to be towed to the pits immediately. I suspect there could be some major damage on their cars given the contact that was made. We'll take a look back at that very shortly and what exactly happened. But meanwhile, Bingham having a great start. Further behind, we see Alfonso Marin in the pack of KFM Motorsport cars here, with the Mercedes driver on the inside of what is Nestor De La Fuente, as they come through the right-hander and up towards Vidal they go, and into the fast version of the chicane. Onto the brakes they'll go here, down the gearbox, flying on through here. It's only going to be one wide, but meanwhile further back, Sean Scooter making a move on Jordan Baywa. And going through the left into right here, will Scooter gaining another place as Baywa falling back. But again, it's a very long race around here, and with the lap time being in excess of 7 minutes, you can imagine we're not going to get that many laps, but every lap is going to feel like a grueling challenge, as Baywa letting Newman go there, and I think realising that Newman is going to be a faster drive, getting his relative start and his class placement. But as they come down here, Newman having to do it a long way from the very back of the field, and will meanwhile the field now starting to open up as they make their way onto the Nordschleife loop for the first time of our skin. But as we look from Baywa to a little bit further down the order, here is Elwin Sykes and Daniel Fritz. The two, you can't mistake them. The CSA Green BMW M4 being chased by what is the Whiskey Runners Porsche 992. And as they make their way on through and up towards the charge, going up towards Quiddelbacher and then eventually into Flug Platz. Well, right now, Fritz very close behind, but can't seem to find a way on in as they weave their way on around. And meanwhile, we're hearing that Jan Cracksman involved in an instant. There's been quite a shake up the front. We've got cars around there coming out of Flug Platz corner. I'm not quite sure what's happened. Benjamin McCluskey has got it very, very wrong, and as he tries to get the car back on circuit, he's going to have to wait for the road to clear, of which there are a lot of cars still to make their way through. So McCluskey right now, and he's on a drop, he's on a dip in the road as well, which makes it harder to get back onto the tarmac, but he can finally come through. Meanwhile, heading in towards Orenburg corner, Lee Horn here battling side by side with Sergio Gonzalez, but Gonzalez up the inside takes the place of a Lee Horn as they make their way up towards what is the Forest as they head charging on down. Here is the compression, and then coming on through, the camera's shaking there with the velocity that they come down here into the braking zone, albeit up into the braking zone we should say in the end, as they clear the compression and now into odd now force. Onto the brakes they go, and as they do, rolling the cars on through here, trail braking as they make the way on through, and indeed very tricky to balance on the brakes there, as we welcome into the Twitch chat Salvo58, who is absolutely happy to see it's the Nordschleife being raced on here today, and the fact it's a 2-hour race. And we also say hello in the Facebook chat there to John Meredith, I do believe he's on holiday today and tuning in from his vacation. And well, hello to you, John. I hope you're having a great time off and enjoying the racing thus far. But as our drivers now get themselves into what is the second third of the Nordschleife loop, meanwhile we do look back to Alex Rogenbach tucked in behind Mark Sykes here, and Sykes with that 50 points penalty for the change to the BMW M4, with Rogenbach right now tucked in behind, making some early ground as they head in towards the left-hander, which then rolls on through into a very twisty little chicane here, the left into right, but as they make their way on out of the next sequence of corners right now, these drivers just keeping their cool, carrying on, and well, thinking about each and every corner. Remember, it's just as much a memory test around here as it is about outright pace. You've got to know what you're doing. And speaking of which, hi, Santos here under pressure with Sykes. The two of them go into drive at Rex, the triple right hand, and Sykes will be on the inside there, gets it done, and Santos not wanting to push it too hard there, going through the right hand, because it's very easy to get it wrong, as Rogenbach going a bit slowly, and Benjamin McCluskey, after getting the car turned around, now back on the offensive here, but he's got to come through the field and do it quickly. But as they weave their way on through and up towards the next corners, going across the bridge very shortly up towards Bergwerk. Meanwhile, speaking of the run out of Bergwerk, they're making their way up towards what will be Confidence Corner as it's known in terms of the nickname it's given, but in terms of the name the corner itself has, I can't quite remember it off the top of my head, but I will be able to get the name of it very shortly. And coming up towards Mudkurve, there we go, the corner which is that fast left-hander. You can see Jamie Dory breaking away already, as meanwhile Gianni Tarr for Quad Dash Racing under pressure from Akram Zanoun in the battle of the P2 in what is the gold class as they make the way up the hill, and Zanoun flashing his lights there to say he's going for a move. Well, he looks for it, the Tarr says no, puts his foot down and says to hold on to it as they make them through. Dory's gone round and the car's parked there to the right of the circuit. It's off the racing line, but that is where it's gone wrong at Mudkurve for Dory. And meanwhile, in the battle for the leader between Gianni Tarr and Akram Zanoun, as all the drivers gradually start to make their way on through. And well, with the shake-up we've seen in the gold class, with so many drivers already to the pits or making major errors, it's a number of silver drivers have actually cut their way on through, including Alfonso Marin, who's your silver leader. He's just gone through the camera shot into the carousel, and as they make their way through the infamous corner, graffitied on. Then we'll talk a little bit about the graffiti and what some of it signifies a little bit later on today. Well, meanwhile, in the front of the field, Gianni Tarr still under pressure from Akram Stone. It's Mercedes versus Mercedes. It's two 6.3 litre V8 engines absolutely roaring to the tune of Natural Aspiration. And as they come out to the right hand there to head on down the hill and start the descent, well, it's going to be a look here on the inside into the right hand of Wesley Whipperman from Akram Stone, and he takes the place. Akram Stone becomes your race leader, and what a move there, a brave move from the Kevin Motorsport red driver going into Brunschen corner very shortly, and in getting it done like that will now definitely build up the pace here and trying to charge away as quickly as he possibly can. But as he now makes his way in towards Brunschen, also known as YouTube corner, for the simple reason the number of video reels you'll see of drivers getting it wrong at this infamous corner, and now making his way on out into Ice Curve. Zanoon not holding back here and absolutely going for it. The bravery and the speed he is bringing right now on this open lap is tantamount to success. But remember, it's a long way to go. It's not over yet, and as they make the way down, now Gianni Tarr under pressure from the silver leader of Alfonso Marin as they make the way on through at the right-hander after the jump and charging the way through what is Fransgarden Zwei very shortly. Well, right now, these two nose to tail, but you can see there how Marin backing off slightly as this is a flat-out run, and any dirty air you have over the front end of the car, it will wash out that front end, trigger some understeer, and that's the last thing you want when you're hitting speeds in excess of 150 miles an hour going on through Fransgarden Zwei. But as they head up towards Schwalbenschwanz corner, we've got a mistake there. Akram Zanoon gets it up to the gravel, and Tahar retakes the lead, and Zanoon they're just keeping it out of the water, it would seem, in the gravel, but that could have been close to disaster, and indeed at any moment it can all go wrong, and that's precisely the point here as they make the way into Galgenkopf and onto the Dottinger straight for the first time today. Well, that's already 7.5 minutes complete of the 2 hours. You can imagine that clock is going to come down faster than our drivers expected to as they clock up the laps and the mileage around here. But it's been a thrilling opening lap, and we've still got a little bit of it to go before we go on to lap number 2. But the point being, as we see at Victor Shimara in the Ferrari a little bit further back, it's a top 3 Mercedes right now, and then a lone Ferrari in P4. Followed up by the second place silver car in the BMW M4 of Tom Bingham, and then a Ferrari pack behind him. But now all the Mercedes drivers here running nose to tail, I think all trying to siphon the slipstream off of Tahar at the front of the field. But Marin here looks up the inside, going underneath the Bilstein Bridge, and as they come down to the braking zone for Tiergarten, well, who is going to be the one to back off? Well, it's Gianni Tarr who backs off there as Akram Zanoon takes the lead for the gold class bag. But for the first time in the GT3 League's history, we are going to see a lap led from the start of the race by a silver class driver here, a lower class driver compared to the top class. Now Alfonso Marin completes lap 1 and goes on to lap number 2. So after one lap, it's the silver class of Alfonso Marin who leads to Kevin Motorsport Red, followed there by Akram Zanoon at P2, your gold class leader. And then Gianni Tarr P3, followed up by Victor Shimara P4. And then it is Tom Bingham P5, followed in by Sergio Gonzalez P6. And then we do have Gavin Garner P7, and then it's going to be at Lee Horn P8, Derek Kamano P9. Oh my good lord! And it's gone very wrong for somebody there. Somebody's missed the breaking point, and it's collected Lee Horn. I think Russell Fowler's also gone on, but it's the Mercedes of, I believe it's the other quad dash Mercedes that we're trying to understand what's happened to that. And I believe that was Tristan Engelstad who went ill in there. And I think the brakes just completely fouled on the car, but that was a nightmare moment for many, and indeed not a happy moment at all there for anybody involved in that incident. As meanwhile Joe Newman trying to force his way around the outside of what was there Wesley Lewin, but loses out, and Newman now turned around. The Audi driver gets himself back up to speed for Empire Motorsport, but the number 97 driver here has got it all to do once again as they make the way into the early hairpin. He's got Jack Barker behind him, and I think that Newman will, once he gets those tyres back down from temperature, feel a little more comfortable with the car, but he goes deep there and the car not in a good state after that slide, and well, now he's got to try and cool it all down once again. But as they make the way on through towards the back section of the GP loop, meanwhile we look back to your race leader of Alfonso Marin, and we can see going on through the left-hander here, through what is known as Tunnel 13 and into Sabine Schmidt curve, going on through the left-hander, named after the legendary driver, of course, Sabine Schmidt, the queen of the Nürburgring, and the one who tried to take the Ford Transit van around here in sub 10 minutes, as seen on the British version of Top Gear. But still, she'll always be remembered in our hearts for her antics, and also her fantastic driving, and deserving of that title, Queen of the Ring. But meanwhile, Marin here having a little bit of a snap motion there, coming down into the next set of corners, making its way there into what was Huayken, and as he did, the car almost letting go, but just catching it in time. But with that mistake then, it's so easy to make a mistake now as they get ready to charge their way out towards Flugplatz here as they come on through with the sense of speed of these cars. And I wouldn't be surprised if Zanoon and Marin potentially look at swapping places shortly, given the fact nose to tail together here. Well, it's going to be, I think, more comfortable for Marin if he lets his here go from Kevin Motorsport. then again, could we see the two teammates squabble, and could this lead them to battling with each other a little bit more? We'll have to wait and see, as we're hearing that Wesley Lewin has had to be towed to the pitch due to an incident going on to this lap. So we've got quite a few incidents to take a look back at very shortly. But meanwhile, Marion versus Noon here, they stay as they were. Meanwhile, Elwin Sykes versus Daniel Fritz side by side. They go towards Flugplatz. It's going to be Sykes on the outside. Fritz gets ahead. You can see they're 2 wheels off the road as he goes for the jump. And Fritz there having to really commit to keeping the car on tarmac, and will get to place there for P3. And the Whiskey Runners Racing driver from Australia, showing it he's got the bravery just as much as he's got the bolster pace in order to get those moves done, as he now heads in towards the left hand at Schweidenkreuz before Arenberg corner. But as he comes on through here, no signs of getting it wrong, and indeed now fully up speeding up the temperature in the car and feeling that confidence is coming. And well, with confidence comes even further pace, and he'll be hoping he can now go and hunt down Jordan Baywa, who's only 3 seconds up the road from him. As they make their way onwards and down towards what will be Ardenau Force, but we take a look back at some of the opening incidents, including what happened between Chris Shorter and the drivers around him. And here is the incident on the open lap. As they made the way under braking into turn number 3, Shorter battling side by side here with Zanoon, and I think there may have been a little bit of contact there between the two of them, and then Wessels just simply having to go wide and end up in contact. We take a look back at that incident from the onboard of Akram Zanoon's car here, as we saw the two fighting hard for position. Zanoon on the outside to inside, and there, well, nose in, there was contact. Now, we're not going to say that Zanoon or Shorter's fault. At the end of the day, they're both fighting over the same bit of space, and both will argue that the other should have backed out there, but definitely not the way they wanted to start their race, no doubt about that. And then Wessels being in that further contact. But with regards to Stephan Wessels going straight on there, well, we see the aftermath of the incident, but can we see a little bit earlier from it to see whether there might have been some contact to the number 27 driver? Well, here we do get a bit more of an extended replay as to what happened to Stephan Wessels as he made his way through the corner, battling side by side there with what is, I believe, Gianni Tahar, as he came through the right hand and just goes deep, tries to take evasive action and ends up in contact with Chris Shorter there. So very unfortunate for the two South African drivers, and it has really brought an abrupt halt to the start of their day. But we also did have a little bit later on an incident for Akram Zanoon, and here's what happened to the KFM Motorsport red driver as he was making his way on the hunt there behind Benjamin McCluskey into the braking zone for turn number 13. Rear of the car, let's go, and he, oh goodness me, and contact with the tyre barrier. We didn't get to see that live, and well, that may explain why that car is very sensitive right now in terms of turning in on left-hand corners, and will definitely get knocked about, there's no question about that. A phenomenal charge back through the field immediately. But what happened to then Benjamin McCluskey later on that lap will make his way into Flugplatz. We see one get it wrong, and then McCluskey, I think, not knowing where to go with the wayward car, the Porsche in front of him, and McCluskey reacting to Jan Crack. Gavin Garnett in the end having to take to the grass there to avoid it. Graves are on the barrier, so McCluskey ends up in a bit of disaster. But what exactly happened to Jan Crack as part of that was he made his way over the jump. You can see there the car going onto the grass, and he turned in, thinking he was on the tarmac, and then McCluskey having to respond, but Crack going over multiple times and immediately towing the car to the pits before it rolled its way back onto the circuit. So great awareness there to do so immediately, but a nightmare moment for multiple drivers. And then we had an instant for Davide Favo going into Arenberg corner, and that, oh goodness me, that was contact, I think, with the BMW M4, the CSA race, and the potential of Sean Scooter there, I think. Well, in fact, we'll try and get an update on that. I think, in fact, it was Elwin Sykes he made contact with there, and well, we try and take a look back at that contact between the two of them. As in fact, Elwin Sykes making the final through. It was not Elwin Sykes, was it Sean Scooter? It was Sean Scooter, we can confirm in the end. Who might have been in a slight bit of contact, but again, not the best camera angles to be able to tell us that. And then Jamie Dory having the instant going on through in the curve corner. Race leader makes his way into the fast left-hander, and as he comes on through, the rear of the car, well, in fact, the car straight lines on there, carrying too much speed, and the rear just lets go, and a nightmare moment there for the NXTGEN Racing Team Pink driver. And then, well, had to just wait his turn to get the car back onto the circuit. And then on the second lap, we had that major incident into turn number 1, and this was the battle between Tristan Engelstad and what was there for the East was Russell Fowler. On the brakes they went into turn 1, contact between the two of them, and that sent both cars onwards then. Engelstad unable to stop the car, became a passenger in his own vehicle, so the contact between Fowler and Engelstad lead into a chain reaction, and that also picked Lee Horn into the mix. And well, those are the major incidents we have seen on the opening couple of laps of this race. And well, whilst we've been looking away, there have been some further major incidents for drivers, including one for Gavin Gardner, so it's all unfolding. And well, meanwhile, as the racing carries on here. Stephan Wessels is back out the pit lane, albeit a lap down after 2 minutes of having the car towed. So therefore, a lot of drivers have got ground to make up. But again, as we said right at the start of today's broadcast, consistency and just keeping out of trouble are going to be absolutely critical here to success. Speaking of which there, that's Benjamin McCluskey going at the inside of Nigel Stock. And the reason we're focusing on the Cresta Autosport driver is because Nigel Stock right now is your bronze class leader. The number 30 BMW M4 staying safe as it makes its way on through what is there, the Kleiner Carousel, and on towards the Dottener Hoa now as he charges his wound down. But Stock just keeping it calm and pushing on here as he makes his way all the way onto the next lap very shortly. We also say hello there to Stiganator SA in the YouTube chat. Hope you're doing well, Stiganator. And thank you, Stephan, for clarifying the YouTube chat with regards to the towing there. Very unfortunate yourself, but hopefully we can see it bounce back later on in the race. But indeed, it has been an absolutely eventful start to this race. There's no question about it. And we're speaking of events here. We've got Benjamin McCluskey side by side with Joe New. It's the battle of the two German machines, Porsche versus Audi. And well, which one's going to back out here? I think McCluskey may back off slightly as they make their way through Tiergarten and on to the start-finish straight once again. As they come to the end of what them is lap number 2. They'll go on to lap number 3 very shortly. And well, right now Benjamin McCluskey making gradual ground, but no, he's got a lot to recover after that spin coming out of Lugplat's corner. And meanwhile, Joe Newman, well, he had his momentum curve early on when he was in a bit of contact with one of the CSA drivers. We believe it was Wesley Lewin who was in contact with going out of the Mercedes arena at turn 4-5. But right now, McCluskey very close. They're getting close enough to tap the rear of Newman, in fact, but the Empire Motorsport driver unfazed by that as they push on. As they head on around and onwards towards what will be at the next sequence of corners very shortly. Meanwhile, we look from them back to Alex Rogenbach, who's still chasing after Jorge Santos. He is currently your lowest place lead lap driver, if you will. And as he heads up towards the final couple of corners here, we're doing everything up right now just to keep the car on the straight, simple and narrow, and not looking to do anything silly here other than chase Santos down. And we always typically have seen these two battling for positions over the course of the season and both enjoying their racing as much as humanly possible. And it's always great to see them fighting the position. But as they make the way up towards what will be another lap very shortly, I do wonder what kind of turn the battle will take between them over the course of the next lap, or whether we will start to see them separate out to a distance as they just gradually now weave their way onto lap number 3. And we do see Santos there briefly disappearing due to a bit of latency, but then finally making its way back onto our pictures. Looking from them all the way up to one of our debutants for today, Paul Williams Speed9 Esports, the number 7 driver here, making his way on through at turn number 13 and on towards the Sabine Schmidt curve. And as he comes on around, right now doing everything he can in order to try and keep Nigel Stock at bay. Albeit I think Stock will be feeling as though he can keep that momentum up and do everything he needs to here in order to try and make a move on Williams. But as they weave their way on towards the next sequence of corners here in the early part of the lap, one of the simpler parts of the lap, if you will, if you can call any part of the lap around this circuit simple, indeed that might be an injustice to do so, as they made their way up towards the Hoheiken and then on the charge to Kudabaka and the Flugplatz corner. Well, these drivers right now carrying on as they started, which is to try and keep it safe, keep it calm and carry on. But as they head up towards Flugplatz now, Paul Williams just only 6 tenths clear of Nigel Stock, and again Stock just sitting behind and on these higher speed sections of the circuit, just focus on not making any mistakes. As they head up towards what will be Arenberg corner. Meanwhile, we look from them to what is Alex Rogenbach again, who is closing up behind Jorge Santos, and we ride on board with the privateer from Germany on his home circuit here today for the purposes of the season, and he breaks his way into the Sabine Schmidt curve, or Nord curve as it previously was known. As they made the way out there, Santos using a bit more of the corner exit by comparison, and heading on down now in to Hatzenbach, the first sequence in the run to Hoheiken. We'll just staying close. He's thinking about moving to Rogenbach, but he can't get close enough, and both Santos and Rogenbach stronger and weaker compared to each other in different parts of the circuit. And again, with such a long lap around here, it does mean that you do end up in a scenario whereby you might be stuck behind the driver in your section that's preferred in terms of where you're faster, but then when you do get close enough to make a move, your rival does end up being a bit faster than you because they come to a section they love of the circuit. And as they come here to left hand here onto Kudabaka, they go. Well, Santos went a little bit deep there, and Rogenbach here will be in the tow, although I think you'll be wondering where the Audi's gone when it disappears and reappears. As they head into Flugplatz, no way through at the moment, just having to wait. And as they come through the right hand, you can see there, back it off as the two Audi powered machines made their way up towards Arenberg. But as they do, we've had another twist and turn in the tail, and in particular it has been a moment for Derek Camano, who's had it go very, very wrong as we're to understand it. And well, as we do see the Lamborghini driver here making its way through Drive Rex and up towards the siphon hairpin. He's got the pressure on Benjamin McCluskey behind, and Joe Newman not too far off here as the trio made their way through the left-hander, a hairpin that can catch out even at the most experienced around here, where it's downhill braking zone is proceeding right-hand king. We're going into the run onto the bridge here before Brideshow corner. Right now, Kamano definitely not on the pace of the two gold drivers behind, and everybody's starting to stack up behind as they head up towards what is the Nürburgring corner. Now coming on through here, McCluskey's going to take a look up the inside. Well, this is going to be brave here. It's too wide into the king, and we're a little bit of a rub there between Kamano and McCluskey. McCluskey eager to get it done. Kamano does not want to let him through. Indeed, right now trying to keep the cork in the bottle, but as they head up the hill, it's going to be a long charge here. Well, the Porsche may struggle a little bit. We can see a flash of lights there for Joe Newman, who is eager to make some further progress. And as they go up towards turn number, well, in fact, not the numbers here. I don't know the numerical number, but I can see as they make the way towards mud curve right now. Well, McCluskey is very close here to look for a potential move, albeit can he find a way to get alongside it to the curve? He's got close enough here to consider it. You can see Kamano there just making that Lamborghini as wide as possible as the Porsche winding at the maximum possible portion of its RPM at 6th gear. And as they come through the left hand and now on towards the braking zone for the long ride, which is known as none other than in fact still Strecke corner. Onto the brakes they go, and as they do, McCluskey right now just tucks in behind and eager to make progress, but Newman also there. You can see Newman's car in the central rear view television camera, and as they head onto the brakes here to the carousel, they all duck in as much as they possibly can. No real gain or loss here. It's all about just keeping the car in the dip, and now out they go, and they stay as they were once more. But charged their way on towards the latter half of lap now, and the downhill descent beginning shortly. Meanwhile, we look from them to a bit further up the road to Gianni Tahar, and well, the Quad Dash Racing drive has fallen away from Akram Sanoon, who right now is absolutely storming away at the front of the field, it must be said, as is Alfonso Marin. And well, those two are lapping just under the 8-minute mark. They're lapping in the 7-minute 56 and 7-minute 57 respectively, whereas everybody else currently is lapping in the 8 minutes plus. So it does seem as though Sanoon and Marin in a world of their own. 1-2 gold leader ahead of silver leader, and then you can see here Gianni Tahar currently P2 gold, P3 overall. He's got Victor Shimaro just behind him and eager to try and find a way to stay clear for now and not lose out on that second place on the gold podium as a minimum. As he makes his way on down and in towards what will be Flansgarden Zwei, and on that charge now, the flat out run here, absolutely committed, and indeed you have to be committed in order to keep the car pointed in the right direction. Well, coming on through the right into left here, and Schwalbenschwan's corner now awaited him. You see how Tahar is being closed by Shimaro, and here's the interesting part with regards to this closure. Whilst we are only 23 minutes into this 2-hour race, do keep in mind here the pit window that our drivers have available to them is actually a very narrow pit window. Because of the length of lap time, there's only going to be 1 or 2 laps where we're expecting our drivers to be able to consider to make their pit stops. We are expecting this to be a minimum of a 2-stop race day. Despite the fact there's only a 1 pit stop mandatory requirement, our drivers will not be able to take enough fuel to get themselves to the end of the race on a single pit stop as we understand it. So therefore it is going to become a balanced lap. But Shimaro right now might be just tucking in behind Tahar and thinking that he can save fuel here with the Ferrari. And the Ferrari very strong when it's got a toe on the straight. So therefore Shimaro really working to the car's strengths right now. But the Spaniard does seem eager, just let them all say he's punched the hole in the air in front of him. And this may buy him the ability to go 1 lap extra, or at least feel more confident in going on a lap extra compared to Tahar, and therefore he may be able to jump ahead. But as they make the way into Tiergarten, you see takes a little bit of a peek there to bleed off the speed, get out the toe, but other than that, not trying to force a move. Meanwhile, further back here, we've got a freeway fight, and this is Kamano versus McCluskey versus Newman, as Alfonso Marin sets a new fastest lap of the race, and that's overall, and Silverclass fastest lap of 55.862 in the 7 minutes. And meanwhile, Kamano, Newman and McCluskey here still all trying to figure their way out, and the silver drive being passed by the 2 golds, but Newman now, he's battling with McCluskey. Onto the brakes they go, but who's going to be the one to back out? It will be McCluskey by the looks of things, and Joe Newman makes it a 2-way pass down the Dottenauer and on to another lap. He goes on to lap number 4, but right now bold move there for the number 97 driver, and trying to make progress here as he heads up towards turn number 1. And on the Rory goes. His next target in the gold class will be Victor Shimaro, who is 25 seconds out the road. So Newman already feeling that lost time earlier on in the race, and also starting from the very back of the field. But still, he's got the time to go, and you never know what can happen until the race is over. We've already seen some major favourites here today end up in the barriers and take an early retirement, or at least an early tow to a pit stop, and have to have the car repaired, including Stephan Wessels, who's down in P9 and just starting to recover his way on to, in fact he is on the lead lap now with all the drives there. That was a mistake for our timing tower earlier on, But the point is he's back in the race, albeit 3.5 minutes down, if not a little bit more. I mean, we have had that retirement in the gold class of Chris Shorter after that open lap incident between himself and Akram Zanoon. I'm sure that one will be investigated after the race. Our stewards will have their hands full with a couple of incidents already. There's still plenty more to go here, and focusing on what's possible now for our drivers. We'll keep in mind that now the field has spread out, everyone will be starting to focus on what they can do with the car. We still do have this battle for P5 in the bronze class between Rogenbach and Santos, with Santos holding ahead of the Lamborghini Huracan driver. And if you're wondering why we said earlier both of these cars being Audi powered, well, the Lamborghini Huracan Evo being powered by the same V10 engine, the Audi in front of it is powered with, albeit the car's very different in terms of their setups and also on the balance of performance. But the key point being with the same power plant there, it really does come down to the fine tuning of the machine as they make their way up to the end of their respective third lap and on to lap number 4, with this rivalry in between them not going away any time soon. As they charged away on to another lap. Meanwhile, Joe Newman here under pressure from McCluskey. This is coming out of Flug Plants and up towards Arenberg they charge. And as they do, in fact, this is not into Arenberg. We're getting a bit of ahead ourselves there. The camera looking a little bit similar, but we are incorrect in that regard. In fact, now making their way onwards towards what will be the charge through Quiddleback Hall very shortly. We ride on board and look back here from the Empire Motorsport driver, Joe Newman, as he comes on around there. And with the Audi right now seemingly a little bit uncomfortable with regards to its pace compared to its rival in the Porsche 992, the Porsche very fast car. Of course, we did see it introduce the iRacing simulator platform as of early this season, and therefore the car's doing very well in terms of its balance of performance right now. But Newman still doing everything he can here to try and keep that Porsche at bay as they head all the way up towards what will be Arenberg corner. You can see it's getting closer and closer with 1.5 tenths here, but first it's Roderick Croy's corner as they come through left-hander. Will Newman carrying on the speed? McCluskey backs out and turns in nice and early to offset the dirt. Yeah, no change, but Newman goes a little bit deep. He brings it back together just about, but McCluskey there taking a sniff of a potential move, but it's not enough to be able to find a way on in as they head on down and on towards what will be Ardenau forced into the compression first tower. It's now a tenth between the two of them as McCluskey getting so close he can reach out and touch the rear wing, but still not close enough there to try and venture a move, and you wouldn't dare to make a move not into Ardenau forced through the compression for the simple reason it's one wide at best as they head out of the corners now, and on the charge they go once again towards Metzgertsfeld as that gap opens up to a degree. Meanwhile, we look from them to a bit further down the order, and in particular to Russell Fowler as new fastest lap of the race overall and in the gold class to Stephan Wessels, who's moved up to P8 on a 7-minute 55.141. So Wessels right now absolutely trying to make up for lost time, and he's got a long way to go. But again, it's not over to that checker flag, as we always say. And here is Russell Fowler in the meantime, who's trying to chase down Sergio Gonzalez as we see his main championship rival with wounds to that Ferrari. Indeed, that front bumper completely missing off the car and exposing the front wheel arches. And as Fowler makes his way on through the right-hander Callan Hard corner, he's caught up behind there Gonzalez and also Jack Barker, who seems to be causing a little bit of cork in the bottle as it's contact to the wall twice for Sergio Gonzalez, and that could be a tow to the pits. That car for Kevin Motorsport Yellow is not in a good place, and indeed he's trying to get it stopped there, and I think the car may have just fallen apart at his fingertips. But in terms of what exactly happened, well, here we go. And I believe he tried to look around the outside there into the short chicane, going through the Spiegel curve chicane into Drive Fat Rex, and Gonzalez getting too close there, and with the contact of Barker. And I think Barker, to be fair, would argue, well, why would you try and go too wide there, given the fact how tight it is, and it's a straight line between the two, but it did not work out between the two of them. We do try and take a little bit of a look back from that a bit earlier on, and in fact, as we do take a look back to what was the Engelstad versus Jordan Bay White initially, this is the side-by-side between them, Engelstad going on the round. And then we take a look back to the battle between Gonzalez here and riding on board as they made the way down. Well, in fact, there was no contact there. We can clarify now. Gonzalez just trying to take a peek off racing line, but in the end, with the state of that Ferrari, the car just not wanting it to grip up and turn into the corner. And indeed, the road there, something that's not necessarily very noticeable, but the road does actually dip away. It cambers away slightly going to the Spiegel curve chicane, and that is what's led to Gonzalez's car just straight lining on and in to the barrier. Very unfortunate there for the 55 driver. But meanwhile, looking from there, we look to Elwin Sykes' return to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen. And will Sykes just picking up where Daniel Fritz has dropped off at Ververt corner, and now up to P2 in the bronze class of the CSA Green driver, albeit 34.5 seconds off of Nigel Stock. And well, right now the CSA Green driver trying to keep ahead of Mark Sykes, is also in the hunt. In fact, Sykes doing very well in P3 currently, as we do look back to Mark Sykes here. And well, if you're wondering whether they're family members, Mark Sykes and Elwyn Sykes, they're not of the same family, they share the same surname. Indeed, it's a little bit of a running joke that they are family, or they're brothers, albeit one of them from South Africa, one of them from the United Kingdom. They do get along, we can tell you that, ladies and gentlemen, down in the paddock, and they do have a good laugh between the two of them whenever they're on circuit together. But as Sykes makes his way up towards the carousel, he's got Daniel Fritz trying to come back in as soon as possible. Meanwhile, we've got an instant there for David Camano pointing in the wrong direction. He's had to be towed to the pits. We're not quite sure where that was, but we can get an instant replay of what's happened to our driver there in the Lamborghini. Coming through the right hand there, I believe that's at the top of the rise. Indeed it is, and then a whack to the barrier there, and that was coming through what was whacked into Hedwig's corner, and the car pointed sideways. Oh, goodness me, and contact with Nigel Stock, and Nigel Stock's race is now going to take a turn for the worse. In fact, leading out front of the bronze class, and will that damage necessitate a pit stop? Can he get it into the pits? That's the question under his own influence. Or will he find himself having to be towed? Well, Stock's carrying on right now. We can confirm that with the damage he's got. He's losing time, but not that much. But meanwhile, looking back here to Joe New and Benjamin McCluskey, well, these two not having any quarter between the two of them as they make the way on around and down into the Kleiner carousel. But as they do, you can see it there, Newman are really struggling to get the car into the right place. The carousel coming in too early and actually bouncing off the apex curve. Very highly raised curve there on the apex, and that can lead to the car coming unstuck and being pushed wide. But Newman avoiding any major incident. You can see that McCluskey right now so close as they head on to the Dottingham straight. And we're charging on down here. I think McCluskey will just tuck back into the toe. You see Newman there weaving once or twice. He's allowed a couple, but no more than that. And as they make the way on towards what will be Tiergarten, it's a long run, but you can see there right now the Porsche gradually starting to inch ahead as they make the way uphill. But the difference in top speed between these two cars, the Audi doing very well in its own impetus, but the Porsche just slowly gaining an edge. It's just 1 or 2 miles an hour between them as they make the way through the left-hand kink there in excess of 160 miles an hour and into the braking zone here. Side by side they go once again. Newman versus McCluskey part 2 in the run through Tiergarten, and Newman holding on here as they come to the end of another lap. But as they do, meanwhile, it's Nigel Stock versus what is it there? I do believe Nesta De Fuente as they come on down, and Nesta De Fuente as he's known in short, and as they make the way through Tiergarten here, Jack Barker just behind what is it, Nigel Stock, and he's got the pressure of Russell Fowler building as Fowler there gets it close to the back of the Made for Racing at Mercedes AMG Evo 2020 machine. But they come out of the final couple of corners and on they go. And we can see that in the YouTube chat, John O'Cook saying, good evening, I'm on crew chief duties for tonight for Russell, and glad to have you tuned in, Jono, and happy birthday for yesterday. And it will mean while Barker versus Stock, as Stock tries to go on to another lap, he does not come in to repair the car, and Barker making the move on the bronze leader. And now Russell Fowler looking to try and repeat as soon as humanly possible. But as they come in to the Mercedes arena, Stock goes a bit deep, then Stock does have the time to play with. We can confirm that in the fact that lap from Stock was an 8:05.95. Meanwhile, what else was there from his rivals by comparison? Well, Elwyn Sykes has crossed the timeline just now, and it's going to be an 8:11.380. So even with the instant, Nigel Stock has been able to limit the damage to his lap time by comparison. So therefore, Sykes right now will need to go all in if he wants to try and close that Stock down. And with also the free fast repairs available, Stock's not going to lose too much time in terms of being stationary for repairs in the pit lane. He'll only lose the mandated time, of course, for the fact he has to be stationary to take on fuel and the tyres. But as Sykes makes his way through the head of Mark Sykes just behind, these two have started to get closer together. In fact, Mark Sykes a second faster on that previous lap as we move through the first half an hour of this race, and now we're on to the second half an hour. And meanwhile, we do look back to Jack Barker versus Russell Fowler as we ride on board here from the rear of the Made for Racing AMG Evo. As they go through turn 13, and on the left hand they go. Barker right now keeping it calm, keeping it consistent, and Fowler just behind there. Fowler really having to think about where he can go for those potential moves. And right now it does seem as though Barker doing enough to stay clear and ahead. But at the same time, you see there Fowler backing off to the degree and keeping the pressure on Barker. And pressure is perhaps the most important factor when you're chasing another driver around the Nordschleife loop, in the fact that with the mistake threshold here being so low, it's so easy to make a mistake. As we can see, they get very close there. And looking on the inside to outside, he gets it done. That was an absolutely ferocious move from Russell Fowler. And what a move it was indeed, as Russell Fowler moves up into P5 in the silver class, going on through Hoheiken. And we'll take a look back at that, because we never expected that to play out the way it did, but the Force Esports driver there just goading Barker into a small mistake, and he didn't need to ask twice in order to find his way on through. And here's the replay of how it happened. So you can see that as they made their way coming out of Hansen back and into Holhike, and Fowler looks the inside there with Barker a bit slow on entry, and I think Fowler decided to go throw his chips in where they may, given the fact he could see the door was open. Expect Barker to leave the door open as they cleared the corner, and were a very bold move from Fowler. It must be said there, that could have gone one or two ways, but the risk was worth it today as they make their way onwards now and carry on what is their 5th lap of asking this circuit. But meanwhile, as we look from them back up to Joe Newman versus McCluskey, well, this is becoming a running battle between the two of them for P4 in the gold class. And making their way into Metzgertsfeld now and through and onwards towards Kallenhard very shortly. We see these two drivers just keeping each other honest, and Newman being pushed as much as possible by McCluskey, but showing no signs of making any major errors. And will Newman absolutely resilient. I can tell you that the Empire Motorsport team as a whole making their debut in this series as of today, and Newman one of their strongest drivers, and definitely knowing exactly how wide he can make his car and knowing where to also gain that lap time versus when to be conservative and just simply make that car wide and obstinate in terms of the potential overtaking opportunities for McCluskey. As he heads onwards and towards the next set of corners now, McCluskey constantly there, and ever looming threat as they make their way in towards that right side, and will very shortly up towards X-Mill they go. It's the right-hander of X-Mill, they clear it now, and leave the little bumps in the road there, not unsettling either of the cars as the two drivers head onwards towards the second half of the lap. But as they make their way in towards Bergwerk, meanwhile, we look back to Russell Fowler, who he's cleared at one car, and now he's going to try and clear another, and this time it's another BMW in the form of Nestor De Fuente as they head into the right side corner. Through the left-hander, over the bridge they go, and as they do, well, right now, no real way in for Fowler. He's absolutely inching Prospect here. In fact, he's going to find one as Fuente. It goes a bit deep there, coming out of X-Mill and out towards Bergwerk. They go through Lauder Links, the little left-hand kink here, but who's going to back out into Bergwerk? Well, it will be Fowler has to back out as the Fuente there just holds the position nicely, and coming up the hill they go. We can tell you between McCluskey and Newman, there is a change of position. In fact, we will look back to that very shortly, but meanwhile Fowler all over the back here of the Fuente as they head up the hill. It's the battle of the BMWs and the Mercedes following behind, and Barker just watching. As you can see there, the Fuente just keeps the car in the middle of the road and making these kinks. It means he's making that BMW nice and wide, but Fowler's there with his nose in on the rear quarter panel, now fully alongside. They make their way into mid-curve corner. Fowler's got the inside then, the Fuente backs out, knowing that two does not go to one through the left-hander, and Russell Fowler moves up to P4 in the silver class. His next target will be Paul Williams, who is 8 seconds up the road. And we haven't heard too much about Paul Williams since his race started. It's a very quiet race, but right now Fowler doing everything to try and charge on for at least a podium, given the fact that Sergio Gonzalez, his main championship rival, Gonzalez Martin, is down in P9. Fowler today could gain some huge points in the championship, and this could be the difference come the final round of the season if it all plays out in his favour. But as the Briton makes his way out of the carousel, we do look back to the battle between what was, I do believe, Joe Newman and Benjamin McCluskey for P4 in the gold class, P6 overall, as the move was made into mid-curve, and here is the replay. Well, in fact, that's not quite the replay. That is Sean Scooter going on around there. It seems that we had a little bit of a glitch with our replay camera, but Sean Scooter getting it wrong. We're not quite sure where that is, but it has gone very wrong for the CSA Blue drivers. He gets himself reset, but we can actually take a look at that battle between McCluskey and Newman. And here it was. They made the way up to mid-curve themselves, and McCluskey decided to go around the outside here in terms of his investment as he headed through the final kink of Gloucester. And as they head into left-hand, we see Newman there still alongside, but having to back out slightly, and McCluskey just inching his way ahead. Newman eager to force that fight for every step of the way, but McCluskey just having the extra mile now in order to be able to do it and get the move done by the time they reach the top of the rise. But as we now return to the live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, well, with their battle finally coming to a close, we can tell you they've caught up to the back of Tom Bingham, who has fallen back into their clutches over the lap. Bingham having a poor run out the Kleiner carousel. And as they head up towards Gelnkopf Corner, right now. Bingham under pressure. The Performance Link Esports BMW M4, however, will be coming up to the section of the circuit that's going to do very comfortably and well, and that is the Nottingham straight. The BMW, one of the fastest cars of the straight, as into the pits on the lead of this race. His first scheduled stop comes at Cramsanoon. We believe that is a scheduled stop, and with it, could we see more of the field coming? He has built himself a 22-second lead. We'll soon find out, as meanwhile Bingham here now being looked to be outpaced by the Porsche and Audi behind him, McCluskey and Newman respectively. But you can see that BMW carrying so much speed, and eventually we do see McCluskey get ahead with Newman sitting in the tow there, and the two gold drivers do find their way past the silver second place driver as Victor Shimura goes on for another lap. But meanwhile, McCluskey and Newman side by side again. Newman trying to get back at McCluskey, but this time McCluskey says no you don't, and holds the position firmly, and McCluskey converts to overtake the people into a certain enter lap in full place. As they make their way past the pit straight, we can see there Newman and also Bingham into the pit lane. McCluskey goes on, but right now we do also have your silver class leader of Alfonso Marin, who has stayed out there, as we do see the KFM Motorsport red driver carrying on for one more lap. And will this give him the opportunity to essentially convert a pit stop into a guarantee of the lead of this race in the silver class all the way to the end? He will have one more pit stop to go, given that fuel tank will very likely get into comes in the end of this lap, what will be about the 47.5 minutes, the 48th minute if you will, and as he makes his way on around the KFM Motorsport red driver here, taking a gamble going one lap longer, but it will mean he'll have a shorter stint towards the end of the race, and perhaps he'll prefer that to have a much lighter car to go hunting at right at the end should anything go wrong. But right now doing a very solid job here as your silver class leader by 1 minute 10 over Russell Fowler. But do keep in mind we have got pit stops playing out in the silver class, plenty of them, including Paul Williams into the pit lane. You see the car up on the jacks there. We've also got, I believe that is Nigel Stock into the pit lane. We've also got Mark Sykes into the pit lane, albeit he's had to be towed to the pit lane due to an incident. We've also got Stephan Wessels continuing to make progress here, and I do know we've got quite a few fans of Stephan Wessels in the YouTube chat, including Stiganator SA, as the CSA pink driver here trying to recover and salvage what he can. He's already up into P7 in the gold class, ahead of Jan Crank and also Jamie Dorey. And his next time will be Gavin Gardner, who is the best part of 40 seconds up the road. But the key point being here is at a moment's notice that can turn in terms of that gap if one driver makes a mistake. And remember, it's not over until you reach that final checker flag. But as Vessels makes his way through Atlantic Gardens Spy right now and onwards towards the end of this lap, well, first up, he's got to find his way past David Camano. And, well, Camano, the silver class driver who recently has taken what has been, in fact, he has recently taken a pit stop, we should clarify. He took the pit stop on lap number 4, and these guys currently on what is lap number 5 for them. More Vessels, we think, so he can get this done in the run down the Dottingham Hole. But as they make the way through it, meanwhile, we've had another incident, and this time it's for Jack Barker, who's gone round at the Mercedes Arena. And, well, the AMG Evo driver just picking the car back up. And, well, an uncharacteristic error there in the Mercedes Arena for the Mercedes drivers. He shakes the car from side to side to see if the steering's pointing straight. I think there might be a bit more damage to that car than meets the eye, but we take a look back at what exactly happened to the Made for Racing AMG. Going on through turn at number 2 and into 3 onto the brakes. He went and did the car let go here under braking. It did, the rear just coming loose, and well, as the car pointed in the wrong direction, put it onto the grass and were kept out of the wall. So I think it is just wounded tyres rather than any damage to the bodywork or the suspension. But definitely a bit of a moment there for the number 6 driver from the United Kingdom, and now trying to pick up the pieces once again as he makes his way in to the Vidal chicane. Meanwhile, we look from the 1 silver class driver to your silver class leader, and well, with the number 5 driver here of Alfonso Marin for KFM Motorsport Red, just in a bit of a lonely world right now, but he won't mind that too much, given the fact he's just carrying on as he heads down into the siphon and just gliding the car down, dancing it into the braking zone. And well, the number 5 driver absolutely calm, cool and collected right now, and doing everything right as we're hitting the Devon Camaros into the pit lane. And well, the 8th place silver driver making his way in, that will release Stephan Wessels, and Wessels is going to go one more lap before he opts the pit, given the fact he did come in at the, well, he came in on the first lap, he was towed to the pits, so therefore some drivers trying to go as long as possible as they can on strategy. And I wonder if we will see anybody try to pull off a miracle strategy and omit a pit stop from this race. Well, that is something we'll have to wait and see, but most of the racing out we suspect will be a 2-stop, given the fact that most of our pit stops have played out. And what has been the 41st minute mark, alternatively what will be the 48th minute mark here in the case of Alfonso Marin. And we're viewing to it as 40 minutes a pit stop, then we will be seeing the two-stop here with the race being 120 minutes, and it splits the race into some very even 40-minute stints apiece. But meanwhile, as we do look to Mark Sykes, who makes his way back out the pit lane here after being towed, and well, he's dropped to P7 after an instant, but now gets himself back up to speed. NXTGEN Racing Team Red BMW M4 drive still with plenty of points to potentially be accrued here today, as we have seen the rate of attrition prove to be very high across all three of our classes. So Sykes is not going to give up as he comes on down into turn number 3. We're just keeping it up to speed now, and just knowing that he's got to get himself reacclimatised with the feeling of the car as he lets Tristan Engelstad go. But the next driver behind in P8 in the bronze class is Davide Favo, and I think Sykes will be a lot less willing to let his bronze class rival go compared to just let the silver class driver go in comparison. As he makes his way out of the early hairpin and up towards the run back into the Bilstein curve here and onwards. Well, meanwhile, we do look from him to your gold class leader, Victor Chamorro, and keep an eye, he's yet to pit, much like Benjamin McCluskey behind him, albeit 21 seconds down. And while McCluskey right now putting in laps that are only being beaten by your silver class leader of what is Alfonso Marin, and Stephan Wessels, your P7 gold class driver. So Chamorro is losing his advantage to McCluskey little by little, but the point being that McCluskey has still got 21 seconds to try and close down here to have a shot of being on the gold podium. I think he'll feel as though right now he can't really think about that gap. All he can think about is delivering lap after lap, and it's the same for Victor Chamorro as he leads the gold class here. He'll know that right now the real leader of the gold class in terms of strategy is none other than Akram Zanoun down in P3, but still all he's got to do is focus on turning each and every corner correctly and delivering each and every lap, and the rewards will be there come at the end of it. Meanwhile, making his way on the inside there, coming for Arenberg corner for P4 in the bronze class, it's Sean Scooter for CSA Blue, and well, a straightforward move there by the looks of things. We'll have to take a look back at how that move was made. I think Santos may have gone a little bit deep. In fact, here is the replay. Was under braking, and Santos going quite slow there through the corner, goes deep, locking up under braking, and Scooter taking that inside line and making it a very straightforward pass in the end. But as we return to your live pictures right now, making his way out of Ardenau Forest, Jorge Santos a bit further back. And the Audi R8 Privateer here, running P5 in the bronze class, and yet to take his pit stop, his first pit stop of the day, and perhaps he's doing some fuel saving at the moment. Perhaps he's noticed on the fuel gauge he's not got enough fuel to get to the end of this lap if he goes flat out, so therefore doing a lot of shifting, we should say, and also on top of that doing some lift and coast into the corners where he just lifts off the throttle approximately at 25 to 40 metres earlier than his braking point in order to stop using as much fuel, and then he can gradually flow the car into the corner. It can also help to protect the tyres, but you're not having to create as much braking force and therefore get the car to come down the speed as quickly as possible. But as Santos makes his way through dry foot brakes right now, falling away from Scooter, and well, the next driver behind is Alex Rogenbach, who is 10 seconds off. I think Santos will feel as though he's safe from the Lamborghini driver. But he comes on through there and out of that siphon. Meanwhile, we look from him to a bit further on down the order, and in particular we look to Jamie Dory, your McLaren MP4 12C in the field, the sole McLaren today, and the P8 Gold driver here. Carrying on by his lonesome after that early instant, put him a long way down, and he has also had his first scheduled stop on top of that recently. So Dory right now just carried on here and looking much like Stephan Wessels to try and get himself back into the race should an opportunity arise towards the very end. But from one driver who's been in the pits thus far to driver who's just going for his first pit stop, here is your silver class race leader, and what was at the time your effective race leader of Alfonso Marin, as he gets parked up and lets the car be serviced. But meanwhile, coming to what is his pit stop as well will be none other than Benjamin McCluskey, as Victor Chamorro walks into the pit lane. But McCluskey comes on in and is bringing that gap to Chamorro down. It has come down to 18.5 seconds, so he is charging on. But meanwhile, speaking of a fast charger, here comes your overall race leader as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. It's Akram Zanoun, the KFM Motorsport, a red driver in the number 94 Mercedes-AMG Evo, carrying on from his first pit stop, and indeed doing everything right thus far as he makes his way on through the Yokohama S hairpin, and knowing right now all he's got to do is keep running this race to outright victory. But as he makes his way into the Mercedes arena, we do look to Alfonso Marin, the silver class leader.
and fellow Mercedes driver, much like Zanoon, and right now P1, P2 being your gold and silver class leaders respectively, with Victor Shimura coming out of the pit lane. Benjamin McCluskey is going to be a bit further back by comparison. Russell Fowler's also into the pits, Lester De Frente is into the pits as well, so plenty of pit stops playing out as Jochen Seeger carries on here, having made one pit stop already. He's in P2 in the silver class, and well, the Speed 9 Esports driver has gone a little bit overlooked here in terms of the pace he's bringing to the table, but definitely right now the 248 BMW M4 flying here, not quite on the pace Alfonso Marin, but still Seeger definitely in that runner-up pace right now in terms of leading the rest of the field on pace, and quite comfortably so, as Bingham does try to match him for that time and does not. In fact, he goes the other way, and another 5 seconds gained as a minimum for Jochen Seeger by comparison as they head onwards towards what is the next set of corners. But as Seeger makes his way on around, meanwhile Russell Fowler coming out of the pit lane, and well, Tom Bingham has just recently left the pits, having taken his first pit stop of the day, as Fowler makes his way down towards turn at number 1. In fact, it was Bingham who made his pit stop on the previous lap prior to this, so he wasn't in the pits at the same time as Russell Fowler. So Performance Link Esports opting to split their strategies by having one driver coming on lap number 5 and the other one coming in on lap number 4. But Fowler right now, as he makes his way on around and in towards what is turn number 3. In fact, it was lap number 5 and lap number 6. They're getting on numbers wrong with regards to those pit stop laps, and we do apologise there. Well, Fowler right now in a bit of empty track. He's got 4-second gap to Néstor De Fuente, and his next target will be this man, Paul Williams, as the Speed 9 Esports driver from the United Kingdom makes his way in towards the Bilstein curve. And as he does, well, he knows right now that Fowler is closing little by little and becoming an ever-present threat. As he heads up towards the Vidal chicane, well, right now we are heading into the 52nd minute of racing here at the Nürburgring Gesamtstrecke in round number 5 of the NXTGEN Racing GT3 League Season 4, brought to you on iRacing. And from Paul Williams, we do look back to the two bronze drivers who can't get enough of battling each other, it would seem, in the battle for P5 of the bronze cars. It's Jorge Santos versus Alex Rogenbach, but keep in mind that Santos has yet appeared as he makes his way through Galmcock. Meanwhile, Rogenbach has taken a pit stop, he's taken it recently, so I suspect that Santos may have miscalculated on fuel, because he's lost effectively a whole pit stop there to Rogenbach through simply not having enough fuel, unless he's trying to pull off a magical bit of strategy here and perhaps go what would be onto a one-stop strategy. And if so, well, Santos may be able to gain some places later on, but he's going to drive quite significantly off the pace as they make their way up towards Tiergarten. As the two Audi powered machines get ready to descend underneath the Bilstein Bridge and onwards towards Tiergarten now. New fastest lap in the bronze car set by Sean Scooter as he's coming into the pits. It's an 8:04, and a very fast lap for Scooter. In fact, a lap so fast that it means that he's outpaced the previous fastest lap in the class by the best part of almost 2 seconds. That's Nigel Stockton at 8:05.95. But Santos makes his way on in there, gives way to Rogenbach to take over that P5 position. But we're interested to see what Santos is planning strategy-wise, and could he be attempting a one-stop? Well, it's not the strategy that we've seen on paper, but still, if he's able to pull it off, that would be a major achievement. And we want Elwin Sykes there giving it way to Stephan Wessels, the two of them on different strategies and different pace in this race thus far. And as they're heading in towards Vidal, where it will be Wessels who takes what is effectively a P15 overall from Sykes. But from them, we look back to Sergio Gonzalez, who is battling in return with Tristan Engelstad as they come on through turns 1 and 2. And will Gonzalez right now find himself in a battle with the third place Silver Championship driver. Gonzalez, remember, is P2, so these two scrapping for points here, albeit with a championship leader in the form of Russell Fowler up in P5. I think they'll feel as though they want to gain a bit more ground and not be fighting each other too heavily right now, given the fact there's so many places behind their main rival. This is a sign of the tide changing in the Silver Class Championship, in the fact that Gonzalez, Martin and also Engelstad, it has not gone right thus far, with some of the incidents costing them very dear. And as they weave their way towards the end of the GP loop, or going from them, we do have what is Lee Horn, a further only 3 seconds up the road from them, in fact 4 seconds, as he heads in towards Vidal. And Horn under a bit of pressure from Engelstad and Gonzalez, who are lapping slightly faster than the British driver from NXTGEN Racing, as he heads into left-hander here of turn 13. But he comes on out and heads up towards the Sabine Schmidt curve. Meanwhile, looking from them as the battles briefly do come to a halt, we will be taking a look back at the move that Tristan Engelstad have made versus Sergio Gonzalez for what was a P8 in the silver class, and here's the replay. It was a drag race down towards turn number 1. Ingolstadt trying to make the move on the inside under speed, and in the end having to do it on the brakes here, and it went very wrong for Ingolstadt versus Fowler earlier on this corner, but not going wrong this time, as Ingolstadt there with a classic move up the inside into the turn 1 hairpin and gets the job done before going into the Mercedes Arena. As we look back to your live pictures now to Lee Horn storming on past our cameraman and Alex Roggenbach going on through first. Roggenbach being Horn's next target for overall position. Well, as they make their way up the hill, we do show you the overall standings. And we can see out of our 31 drivers who were on the grid, we have had 2 retirements in the form of our first retiree of Chris Shorter, and then our second retiree 4 laps later of Jan Krak. And then we do have in the pits currently Jordan Baybois, albeit I believe that pit stop is a scheduled pit stop and not a tow to the pits as far as we are aware. So 29 runners still in this race, but definitely some huge surprises up and down the classes. And well, perhaps the biggest one at this moment is in the fact that your leader in the silver class, and by a huge margin, P2 overall, is Alfonso Marin, as the KFM Motorsport red driver roars his way on down through Flans Gardens via here, coming towards the end of what is his 7th lap around the circuit and the race conditions today. And the gap between himself and Ant Kremsenu now up to 10.5 seconds. But Marin keeping his teammate from KFM Motorsport honest as he roars his way up towards what will be the Schwadenkreuz corner here, coming through that left-hander. Well, right now, Marin absolutely going for gold here in terms of trying to pick up an overall podium. That was the Schwadenkreuz corner, not the Schwadenkreuz corner, which is earlier on in the lap. As he heads in to Galmcott corner. Meanwhile, we do look from our 2nd place overall driver to what is our 6th place overall driver of Joe Newman. And after being passed by Benjamin McCluskey, it does seem as though McCluskey now starting to break away from Newman. Although it should be pointed out that Newman's pit stop was the best part, 4.5 seconds faster than McCluskey. So I think Newman here deciding to go for a bit of a different strategy and potentially considering whether he can go for the 1 stop, albeit it will mean he'll have to do a stint that'll be the equivalent of approximately an hour and 10 minutes. In fact, I think he might just be doing some fuel saving initially in order to shorten that final pit stop, and well, now turning the wick down, knowing that there is going to be a long haul race here, and he's not in a close battle with McCluskey for the time being, at least on circuit, but you never know what comes on strategy. But looking from Newman to Tristan Ingolstadt. Ingolstadt making his way side by side with Alex Roggenbach, going up towards what is their Bergberg corner. And Roggenbach having his brake lights on now. I wonder if he's got a brake pedal issue or whether he's just starting to bleed some speed off the car to let Ingolstadt go. But either way, we can see they're just gradually stroking the brake, and the brake lights going on and off very quickly on the car. But meanwhile, Ingolstadt now moves up to P18 overall as he makes his way uprise from Kesselchen and Klosterol before getting to the infamous curve corner. As he charges his way past our stationary camera there. Meanwhile, we look to a little further back, the former Sean Scooter, who now looking for a potential move here on Jack Barker for P21 overall. The bronze strider trying to pick his way past the silver driver, and well, as he gets close here in the tow, well, I think Scooter will know at the end of the day he's got to make this smart, and in doing so, he'll gain some more time. Also, he can save some fuel here in the run up the hill. As we're hearing, there's been a tow to the bits for Daniel Fritz, and also Elwin Sykes involved in the major shunt, from what we understand. Let's take a look back at what's happened between the two belligerents in the Bronze Class Championship shortly. As Scooter looks on the inside, intimate curve corner, Barker on the outside, and Scooter taking a bit too much apex curve there. You can see the car bouncing off the curve and dropping aggressively, and Scooter had to back off completely to make sure he did not clip the rear of Barker's car. But Barker there not giving way, and I think expecting Scooter to make his way on through when they get onto the Dottingham straight. But Scooter's got other ideas here. I think he feels as though he's being cost time right now in staying behind the silver class driver. As they make the way on through, it's going to be Barker, who goes a bit deep there and just missing the exit wall. And as they come on through, Barker rejoins, but Scooter will take that place in for P20 overall. He does find his way through his man. Meanwhile, in to the pit lane for the 2nd time today has come Jochen Seeger. I believe that is for a drive-through penalty for Jochen Seeger. In fact, it's not a... In fact, it is a... In fact, we're just trying to get clarification on that, ladies and gentlemen. Being told one thing than the other. It was not a drive-through penalty. We must apologise there. You can see it coming out after a pit stop. A bit of an error on our data with regards to the fact we thought we had a drive-through pit stop at first. It did say stationary time was 0, but then we had it updated, say he actually spent the best part of 31 seconds stationary. So therefore, right now, you can see it drops down the order of the P10. But as our drivers here, Scooter and Barker, make the way in the wind and down into Brinsham Corner very quickly indeed. Meanwhile, we must look from them to a bit further up the order, and in particular we do look up to what is Nigel Stock, your bronze leader here, P12 overall, as he heads in towards the Bilstein Curve complex on the back half of the GP loop before going on to the Nordschleife loop. And as he comes on through here, well, right now the Briton still leading a very strong race and an absolutely unperturbed race, it would seem, in terms of the fact since he's led this race he's just been able to gradually saunter off into the distance, and the Crest Autosport driver here enjoying most definitely one of his strongest performances thus far. But we're not going to give him too much praise because we still do have an hour of racing to go here, and well, in the meantime Stephan Wessels into the pits for what will be his first scheduled stop. He's come on in after that early repair work, which was his first unexpected pit stop. But as the CSA pink driver there goes up onto the jacks, it will be tyre change, and on top of that fuel going into the car, and well, can he make the fuel tank last a whole hour? That'll be the big question mark, and my gut feeling says he may not be able to unless he takes all the pace out of the car. But looking from him back to the battle for P10 overall, P5 in the silver class. It is here none other than Jochen Siegert versus Nestor De Fuente, as Siegert under increasing pressure in the battle of the two BMW drivers, and with the early gains made by the Speed9 Esports driver, and now started to be worn away given the fact some of the drivers who were off the pace or involved in incidents earlier on have got themselves now back onto podium at challenging pace, and Siegert here just trying to make sure he doesn't do anything hasty in terms of just now those race lines, keep the car on the black stuff, and in doing so there he'll feel as though the point will come, and indeed he can make the car nice and wide for De Fuente as he heads on round the Nordschleife loop. Tristan Engelstadt and Lee Horn both into the pits as well, and I suspect for their first pits, their next pit stops we should say, albeit they have both been in once already, and I believe it may be for damage on the car. But meanwhile, we did have an incident between Elwin Sykes and Daniel Fritz a bit earlier on. This was back on lap number 7, while drives on lap number 8 currently, and we take a look back at what exactly happened. And this is Elwin Sykes making his way up the hill and into Hoat Corner, the right-hander, going into the braking zone here, some smoke ahead, and well, contact there with the side of Daniel Fritz's car, which had gone round. Elwin Sykes not able to stop the car in time, but Elwin Fritz pointing himself back in the right direction, but they'll both have some damage to their respective machines. But what happened to Daniel Fritz in the first place is the question. Was he made his way into Hoat, missed his front bumper already, rides too high there on the entry curve, and as he drops off the curb with a wheel on the grass, the rear left tyre on the grass, the car just goes on round, and then into the side comes Elwin Sykes on a blind corner coming on around. But as we return to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, that explains what happened there to the two main championship roles in the bronze class, and Elwin Sykes still in P2, and Daniel Fritz in P10, having to be towed to the pits after the damage he picked up from that mistake and the further contact. So therefore Daniel Fritz now back in P10 in the bronze class, making his way back out into circuit. As I look out my quarantine proof window, Mark Sykes still in the pit lane by comparison, with repair work ongoing on the car. So indeed it's going to be some long pit stops for those repairs, as you can see it there, who we look at making a bit of a calamity of the apex curve of Versiphon, albeit not getting completely wrong as he makes his way into right side, coming in to the left-hander here, and will Nestor De Fuente behind, staying with him, albeit falling back to a second off. But I would imagine this may be just a natural course of the road, because De Fuente will try and come back in the latter half of the lap. But as we make our way into the second half of this race, I think it's only appropriate we now give you a recap of your respective class standings. And well, after an hour's worth of racing, we start with the gold class here. And at Crimson, your KFM Motorsport red driver leads this race. Now, it hasn't been all smooth sailing for the number 94 Mercedes AMG driver, involved in open lap contact with Chris Shorter, which has unfortunately seen Chris Shorter retire from this race. But at Crimson has carried on as best he can. And then after that contact, where it was in the run into turn number 13, where he got it wrong coming out of Edo and in to the left-hander, take our drives onto the Nordschleife loop, and the rear of the car making contact with the tyre barrier. But after those 2 months, Crimson has been absolutely faultless, it must be said, and right now continuing to push on here in the lead of the gold class and overall, and he's leading overall ahead of silver class leader Alfonso Marin by 13.5 seconds. But in terms of his gold class advantage, as he makes his way there past Sheldon Swan's corner, another corner that almost saw him on the wall on lap number 1, but he kept clear of the danger zone. He currently does have a 44.5 second advantage over second place gold driver, and it is KFM Motorsport Yellow's Victor Chamorro. Now he's running P3 overall with the silver class leader of Marin between himself and Zanoon. But the point being here that Shimura enjoying a very solid run so far. Indeed, no major mistakes for the Kevin Motorsport yellow Ferrari Evo driver as he roars his way down through Flansgarden Zwei and really has been the second best on pace so far, albeit it should be pointed out that Benjamin McCluskey is closing him down since the first round of pit stops, and McCluskey on the previous lap was 5 seconds faster. So Shimura right now may be in a bit of a danger zone towards the end of the second stint. In fact, we are expecting the second pit stop to be around what is the 1 hour and 20 minute mark, so 80 minutes of the race, alternatively at the 1.5 hour mark, so with 90 minutes complete. So we'll have to wait and see how those strategies overlap on each other, but there's a high possibility we may see some further battling yet. As meanwhile, Benjamin McCluskey is your third place gold driver and was finding himself in a back and forth battle for the best part of 4 laps versus Joe Newman for Empire Motorsport. But in the end, the NXTGEN Racing Team Purple driver finally finding his way through on the 4th time of trying, and well, it was a bold move in the end going into mid-curve corner. But it was the only way the number 28 Porsche 992 driver could force the move, force his hand and get things done versus Newman, who has proven to be absolutely resistant to everything he could throw at him. Then we do have Joe Newman, currently P4 in the gold class, a bit further behind, and the Empire Motorsport driver. Keep in mind he's come through from the very back of the field. He didn't start at the back of the gold class. He started from the very back of the overall field, and well, the number 97 driver has fought his way through hard and has moved into P4, and right now chasing it down McCluskey. And on that last lap, in fact, he was 2.5 seconds faster than McCluskey. But will it be at this time, as the two definitely got a rivalry forming between them. Great respectful racing though over the course of their battling. It's what we love to see, and Newman right now trying to push on as McCluskey comes to the timeline. It's the personal best from McCluskey, a 56.692. That's in the 7-minute laps. Newman, meanwhile, he crossed the line. It's a 56.948, so in fact 3/10 slower by comparison with McCluskey. But to be fair, 3/10 around here is child's play in terms of you make or lose that in a single corner sequence rather than what would be an entire lap. But then we have Gianni Tahar in P5. And the Quad Dash Racing driver, having been inside the top 3 early on in this race, some early instances have cost him dear, and the Dutchman right now trying to push on here for a top 5 finish in the class, albeit he is 25 seconds down on Newman, but in return he does have a safety net of 42 seconds over next man Gavin Gardner, and Gianni Tahar, well, just keeping his head down and looking to bring home that top 5 finish and give himself some points. But otherwise, the Quad Dash Racing driver definitely having a difficult start to the day after what was a good few laps early on. I do believe he'll have a number of you tuning in to support him, including the Sonny Bond in the YouTube chat we didn't say hello to right at the start of today. He was our first person, in fact today I should say, don't assume the gender. They were our very first person to put a message in our respective chats today, and hope you're doing well at Sonny Bond as Gianni Tahar here looking to end this race on a high. But then in P6 into the pits for his second pit stop of the day in the gold class, it's NXTGEN Racing Team Pink's Gavin Gardner as he comes on down there, the Ferrari 488 Evo driver, having a couple of major moments on the opening couple of laps which cost him dear, but still trying to push on here for what will be a good set of points and trying to stay ahead of Stephan Wessels, who is the best part of 3.5 minutes behind. Speaking of which, is Stephan Wessels involved in contact with his own teammate Chris Shorter whilst trying to take evasive action from Shorter on the turn number 4 on the open lap, and Wessels is having to be towed to the pitch due to damage picked up, and the CSA Pink driver since then has literally been putting in fastest personal best after fastest personal best. He makes his way on through the Gallenkopf corner there on around to Dottinger-Hohe. He's not quite the fastest man in the gold class out on circuit currently. That would be going to Akram Zanoon, but Wessels does hold the fastest lap title on a 51.99. That is almost the second fast in Akram Zanoon's fastest lap of a 52.86. So Wessels is not staying slow. He is not hanging about here. He wants to see if he can pick up places before this is done. As he makes his way down the final stretch, we then do have our final driver on circuit in the gold class. It's Jamie Dory, who is a further 1.5 minutes back, and the NXTGEN Racing Team Pink driver with that mistake at mid-curve early on in the race, and in a couple of further instances, indeed, costing him dear there. With one of them seeing him being towed to the pits, the McLaren MP4 12C driver enjoying the run around the circuit right now, but definitely not on the pace compared to the recovery work being done by Stephan Wessels, and Dory right now waiting to see if any other drivers have to be towed to the pits. It gives them an opportunity. As we see, he jumps his way down through Flansgarden Zwei there, and well, the car bouncing its way on through, also known as the Stefan Beloff S sequence there of corners, as he now heads in towards Trout and Schwanz. But that's your gold class that currently stands on circuit with the 2 retirees of Jan Crack and also Chris Shorter, with Shorter retiring on the open lap and Crack retiring 2 laps later by comparison. But as we then come on to the silver class, well, here is your silver class leader of Alfonso Marin. Albeit before we recap how his race has gone so far for Kevin Motorsport Red, we should take a moment to let you know there have been a couple of incidents since then, including one silver driver, Paul Williams, who's dropped all the way down the order, and will Paul Williams having to be towed to the pits. He's dropped to P6, and this is what happened to the Speedline Esports driver on his debut today. Making his way through Flansgarden Zwei, and the rear of the car, they get unsettled from that curb contact, going into the Stefan Beloff S sequence and in to the wall there, and goodness me, a nasty moment for Williams as the car letting go. Meanwhile, Russell Fowler having to take evasive action, and Williams having to be towed to the pits there, and the car not in a state to be driven anymore. And then a bit later on, we did have an incident for Jack Barker making his way through Bergwerk there, goes a bit wide, and as he does, the car gets taken with the exit curb to the grass. He drops at the curb onto the grass, tried to get the power down, and a nasty knock to the wall there for the Mercedes AMG Evo driver, and with it a tow to the pits. And then we also had an incident for Elwin Sykes on this lap, and what exactly happened to the CSA Green driver, who at the time was ranked inside the top 5 of the bronze class. We're going into Iceback corner, and just straight on there, the car does not brake. Looks like brake failure for the number 25 into the barrier, and will that car just having to grind its way downhill, and in the end come to an eventual stop through friction. But unfortunate instance for all of them. Also, Sergio Gonzalez been involved in an incident, and one of your silver championship contenders here, as he made his way down towards Brunschen corner, but he never made it there as the car came off the apex curb of the right hander, bounced wide, and in the rear end unsettled and going on around, and having to be towed there with the contact to the wall, damaging the suspension. So 4 major incidents in one lap on lap number 8, and more in the second half of the race. The Nürburgring is taking no prisoners here as Alfonso Marin gliding his way over the rise end, almost losing it in return as he made his way through the right-hander of Whipperman, the end of the Whipperman complex, and into Icebank. But as he now goes into Brunschen here, it does look as though Alfonso Marin keeping it on the straight and narrow, and well, that's been really his story thus far today, in the fact he's not put a foot wrong. He's P2 overall, and the silver class leader with a gap of 1 minute and 12 seconds between himself and Tom Bingham. I think he'll feel as though he has got this all done and dusted as long as he gets the car home. But the Mercedes AMG Evo driver soars his way towards the end of his current lap. We then look to Tom Bingham, your second place silver class driver for Funstein Esports. He has Gianni Tahar behind him, your gold class P5 driver. But for the number 11 BMW M4, it has been a story of a relatively quiet race, picking up places early on in the race due to instances of other drivers, and also having some pace to his fingertips. But since then, he's now just simply keeping his head down and pushing on as much as he possibly can. Albeit he does have the looming threat of teammate Russell Fowler, who is 13 seconds behind, in fact 14 seconds behind we should say, and Fowler may be looking at potential overtake on Bingham before all is said and done. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do potentially swap the drivers in order to improve Fowler's championships in the chances in the championship, I should say, as I get my words in the wrong order there, in the fact that right now Sergio Gonzalez Martin, who is Fowler's main rival, is down in P10, and therefore Funstein Esports will be missing an opportunity to move Fowler into that runner-up spot come the end of this race if there was the chance to do so. But meanwhile, as Bingham carries on, we do look to Russell Fowler here, and having started from the very back of the silver class, the Funstein Esports driver in the number 16 BMW M4, he's had to make some very bold moves to get the job done, including what was a lunge on Jack Barker in to Holheiken. But still, Fowler not afraid to get stuck in and demonstrating that, there's no question about it, as he continues to charge on, and his target of Bingham is inching closer and closer as he keeps putting these laps in. And well, he'd love to take the win here today, but I think that might be out of arm's reach, but he'll definitely want to take a P2 before this is all said and done. Then outside the podium spots in the silver class, making his debut today for Speedline Esports is the German driver Jochen Seeger, who has returned to the grid after a long hiatus, and we're very happy to see him back. Indeed, it doesn't stop me from having a big beaming smile right now just to see him on screen here, ladies and gentlemen, because he has definitely been a fan favourite in past seasons of the GT3 League. Indeed, dated all the way back to the very first season where he was competing for what was at the time, if my memory serves me correctly, the AM Class Championship crown, and just fell slightly short in a 4-way title fight in in the final round. But the 248 driver here making his way on through the kind of carousel, and as he does, well, right now in the silver class, it has definitely been a good day thus far. He hasn't really made any mistakes on circuit, and right now holding a considerate P4, albeit the only problem he's got to worry about is in the fact that Néstor de la Fuente is closing. But keep in mind that you can see it has recently made his second pit stop, so therefore this man will know that the pit stop strategy is not fully aligned, and you can see it in fact may be competing for what could effectively be a spot of the podium depending on how that strategy plays out versus Russell Fowler. And then we do have our P5 silver class driver Néstor de la Fuente as the KFM Motorsport yellow driver makes his way down the Dosnohur straight and up towards Tiergarten, and he has been fighting hard. He was in a bit of a battle with Russell Fowler early on, albeit Fowler finding his way on through and also having a bit of an exchange with Jack Barker, but in the end the number 32 driver here holding onto the top 5 spot, and I think that is his goal. He's not quite got the pace that some of his KFM Motorsport peers, but the point being he's definitely got the consistency and the safety, and therefore right now the number 32 driver will take it in his stride, and none of those points are naturally going to come the end of the race. MP6 in the silver class is the other Speed 9 Esports driver of Paul Williams in the number 7, and well, it's been a challenging start to the day, and the fact running in what was second place for a sizable period of time with no mistakes made, and then a major error which we saw on replay only moments ago cost him dear, and Williams since being towed to the pits has re-emerged in P6. The Speed 9 Esports driver now having to try and pick up all the pieces and charge down the top 5, albeit he is the best part of 2 minutes and 14 seconds off the top 5, so it may be now more focused on just finishing P6 with Derek Camano lapping on average 3 seconds a lap faster, but closing down that amount of time in terms of what is a 30-second gap, or more so a 23-second gap between now and then. Well, he'd need to strip 5 seconds a lap out before the end of the race to have an opportunity on that final lap. Speaking of Derek Camano, here is your KFM Motorsport red driver, your second place silver class championship driver going into tonight, and well, it definitely has been a difficult day thus far, with a couple of major incidents for the number 3 Lamborghini Huracan cost him dear and forced him to have to come into the pits prematurely. But right now on a recovery drive here, and he'll want to try and close Paul Williams down to pick up P6 and mitigate the damage done to his championship chances before the end of the day. But he's got a long way to go here with 44 minutes left on the clock plus that final lap. And then P8 is Tristan Engelstad. The Quad Dash Racing driver involved in a nasty shunt on lap number 2 into turn number 1, which involved himself and Russell Fowler and Lee Horn. But since that contact, he's been able to stay out of trouble. And right now, the Scandinavian driver here in the 57 just charging on. And well, the gap between himself and what is Camano, 15 seconds, and that gap is growing in the favour of Camano. But one thing that is also going the other way in terms of growing for Tristan Engelstad is his advantage over Lee Horn. The next gen racing at 36 drive here in the Porsche 992 will end up in that contact with Engelstad on lap number 2, and that contact cost him dear and caused him to have to be towed to the pit. So therefore the number 36 driver here just trying to recover what he can as he makes his way through the long right-hander. As he comes on around, we then do have to complete what is the silver class running on the circuit. Well, firstly it's Sergio Gonzalez who completes the silver top 10, and well, for Gonzalez, an absolute nightmare moment which we saw earlier on where the car ended up in the wall, and with that the KFM Motorsport yellow driver being towed to the pits and on what is a premature pit stop, now knowing that his chances of closing the championship back up in the silver class have definitely been scuppered unless there is a major error which causes a retirement for Russell Fowler. But Gonzalez almost 2 minutes down on Lee Horn, and then effectively a lap down currently, albeit in fact he is within arm's reach, and therefore he's a lap down versus the silver class leader instead is Jack Barker, who is your last silver driver in the field at the moment, with a mistake out of Bergwerk corner costing him, causing him to be towed to the pits, but made for racing driver here not giving up. But as we then come to the bronze class, and indeed continue our recap here, we do have Nigel Stock, who is your bronze class leader by 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And well, Nigel Stock, ever since taking the lead of the bronze class on the opening lap, he has not put a single foot wrong, and right now just absolutely in his element, and he could definitely choose to back it off right now in terms of opt to turn the wick of the car down by a further couple of seconds. He's lapping consistently in what is the 8-minute 2s, 8-minute 3s. In fact, his fastest lap of the race last time around, an 8-minute 2.15. With Stock having that much of an advantage. He has got one more pit stop to go, to be fair to him, but even so, he will have plenty of comfort here, knowing that in effect he does have a minute worth on lap time versus the likes of his rivals, and well, the most prominent one being Sean Scudder, making his way out turn 13, almost making contact there to the old Nordschleife pit wall, but as he comes on through turn number 2, it's Sabine Schmidt for the Nordschleife Louvre. It's going to be for the CSA Blue driver, a run to the podium here. That'll be his target, albeit he may have another pit stop on the cards, but right now keeping his cool and carrying on. And well, for Scooter, it definitely was an eventful opening 4 to 5 laps. Major incident cost him dear, but since then he has calmed down and got this under control as best as he can, and it'll be some major points in the championship here to get him back into that top 3 fight. Speaking of the top 3, to round off the top 3, he's yet to take his second pit stop, so therefore he is out of position on the strategy, but enjoying one of his strongest performances so far. And as soon as I say that, commentator's curse hits him, and he goes straight on into the tyre barrier there at turn 13. And we were just about seeing the praises of Alex Rogenbach in the fact that the privateer has been absolutely faultless and found himself in a brilliant battle with Jorge Santos for the first stint of the race, but that contact is going to cost him time, and what was a 50-second gap to Wesley Lewin, that gap is going to come down quite rapidly so. And well, Rogenbach right now trying to pick up the piece of the front bumper that's hanging on one side, and well, the number 70 Lamborghini Huracan will try and make its way to the end of this lap. Indeed, he's got a long way to go to do so, and how much time will that cost him on top? That's the compound effect we're waiting to see the answer for. But coming from him to Wesley Lewin, he is your full-place bronze driver, CSA Pink, and also enjoying a relatively quiet but at the same time smart race here. And well, looking to try and pick up his first podium in class. Not quite able to do so thus far, but he has picked up this season one of his first top 5s. That was the last time out. So the CSA Pink driver here keeping his cool and carrying on, and that's what you've got to do in the Ferrari 418 Evo as he winds his way up through turn number 13, and he has what is a gap of, I do believe, 14 seconds to Davide Favo, current P5 bronze driver from CSA Blue, and the Audi R8 GT3 driver continues to charge on here. Now he's made 2 pit stops already, and he wants an opportunity to try and be as close as possible to that podium position, that P3, if not finishing in the top 5 as a minimum. But as I look at my commentary booth window, we do have Akram Zanoon coming into the pits for his final pit stop of the day. So the second round of scheduled pit stops coming up very soon. And Elwin Sykes, meanwhile, in our recall of the bronze class drives, is P6 for CSA Green. And the number 25 driver here, more right now, he's definitely had an eventful race, it must be said. A couple of major incidents costing him dear when he was running on the podium positions early on in the race, much like Daniel Fritz, who will come to in due course. But right now, Sykes trying to recover this race. He is 34 seconds behind Davide Favo, and in return he's only 3 seconds clear of Jorge Santos, who he has recently found his way on past. And Jorge Santos, the privateer here, one of the slower bronze drivers in the field in terms of lap time today, but still Jorge Santos not putting a foot wrong. He's been very consistent as the number 15 Audi driver, and that consistency has kept him out of the barriers and means he will pick up some good points. And then lastly, in terms of drivers on circuit right now, we do have Daniel Fritz, Whiskey Runners Racing, the Australian driver who was running at P2 and at one point was leading early on the race. A major error whilst he was in P2, however, cost him dear. Seeing now to be towed to the pits. And Whiskey Runners Racing driver now down in P8, knowing he's got a long way to go here to try and catch up for positions, given the fact it is a 20-second gap to Jorge Santos, and then he'll look to try and pick up Elwin Sykes if he can, albeit there's not that much time remaining. He weaves his way there in to Harhaken, and very shortly goes onto the Kudelbacher Higher Straight. We then do have in the pit lane currently Jordan Benoit. He's in for his second scheduled pit stop of today, and well, the Frenchman in the privateer 64 Ferrari 488 Evo continue to have a struggle with regards to his results quite recently, and the luck has not been on his side once again here today, as right now the car being serviced. And I do believe it was in an instant, in fact, and we can take a look at that instant very shortly, as our last driver who has retired in the bronze class is Mark Sykes, an early retirement for Mark Sykes. But meanwhile, we look back to Jordan Benoit, and well, the car going quite slowly already. You can see damage on the side of the car, so there's already been one instant, and I think coming down into a Brunchen corner at the rear of the car, letting go before the right-hander, and in at the end, all the number 64 going on around, and a difficult moment there for the Ferrari driver, the defending bronze champion, and that title defence this season definitely not going the way he wanted it to. But meanwhile, we do look from Benoit to a couple of other incidents that did occur, including what happened to Gavin Gardner on lap number 9, as we're giving you the recall of the field, and this was coming out of Brunchen corner, gets it right there eventually, with the car wobbling a little bit into Iceback corner, the rear of the car just letting go, and I think the rear tyres on that Ferrari saying they'd had enough, and well, the Ferrari very aggressive on tyre wear, it must be said. And we've also quite recently had an incident for David Camano on lap number 10, and that's seen him drop outside of the top 5 of the Silver Class once he in fact was towed to the pits, and coming on through what was their Canonade corner, hits the exit curb, and as he falls off that curb into the wall there, the car just simply pulling to the right immediately, and the KFM Motorsport red Lamborghini out of the running there in terms of running on circuit. But meanwhile, we return back to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, and as we do, well, Akram Zanoun here, he's re-emerged from the pit lane. He's been involved in an incident, but he's missing a rear wing, and the KFM Motorsport red driver, who had come out effectively P2 overall and was back in the gold lead, such was his advantage, is now under pressure from Benjamin McCluskey, with Victor Shimura just up the road, and Zanoun may be on course for another pit stop. He will have another fast repair available, given the fact they've got 3 fast repairs here, and well, as he comes down into the Nürburgring corner, could this be another late twist in the tail? Keep an eye that Benjamin McCluskey has only taken 1 pit stop, so we suspect McCluskey will be in at the end of this lap to take his second and final pit stop of the day. But Zanoun right now will definitely be feeling as though all the advantage he's carved out for himself is being whittled away, but he's hoping he doesn't have to tow and he can keep the car safe as he makes his way into Ardenau Force, carrying a lot of speed there as the Mercedes AMG driver. McCluskey trying to follow him, keep the pressure on, and you can understand why McCluskey wants to try and get Zanoun to make an error, and in doing so it will completely blow the gold championship battle back open, and also with that the gold lead battle back open today as they make the way in towards the left-handers before Metz gets felled. Once they come on through it and now in towards Callahan very shortly. McCluskey all over the back of his rival, albeit you can see here how wide the road is, and with Zanoun there, despite the damage, goes a little bit deep, but still the car picking up from where he wants it to and rolling the way on through at the Spiegel chicane, and now going in to drive at Rex. Well, here it will be McCluskey's opportunity to really get close and really become a looming threat to Zanoun. There's no way in for a move here there, Siphon, but the idea is you want to try and get your rival without breaking himself there, because once you miss your braking zone by even 5 meters, you're going straight on, and McCluskey getting a good run here, coming out of the hairpin, and he's got to look around the outside here into right side corner. Over the bridge they go, and as they do, McCluskey cuts it back, heading up into X-Muller now. Can't find his way through initially, but McCluskey definitely getting eager to make a move as he gets the better launch out of X-Muller, heading up towards the loud links, the left-hander before the run into Bergwerk corner, and who here is going to go for the move? Zanoun defends. McCluskey looks to the outside, onto the brakes they go, can't find his way on through. Zanoun making the car very wide, but goes deep there through Bergwerk. McCluskey gets the better run, and this time it will now be an opportunity to get alongside, but the problem is it's a drag race uphill, and the one thing that Mercedes does very well is drag races here in the GT3 class. They make the way on through, both drives very shortly, getting ready to head into 6th gear to late as possible, given the RPM needed to go uphill. You can see that 6.3 litres of V8 muscle versus what is the flat 6 of the Porsche. The Porsche just can't find its way around. He looks around the outside there as they make the way through Costerol, but he can't quite get it done. And then there's the back out into the curve. We stay with this battle as they wind their way all the way up to the end of the long run and getting ready to head in to the braking zone here for what will be going into Stillstrecker corner, and well, they've got a little bit of trouble in front of them. That's Jack Barker, who's respecting the blue flags immediately there and stepping well wide and letting this battle fight its way on through, and we appreciate that here as it charges its way in to the carousel, coming on to the brakes here, and neither driver really gaining here or losing out. They just have to separate from it, as is the nature of the Concertina, into the corner. But now McCluskey will be back on the charge here, but heading downhill after the next couple of corners, going through Boston 147, and then it'll be all the way up to the highest point of Hoat corner. They'll then be making the way downhill, and that is when the Mercedes really does gain its speed, albeit missing a rear wing, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Zanoun has to back the car off through fear of a lack of rear downforce, and therefore the stability of the car, as McCluskey immediately now trying to pounce. They head through Whipperman, and all the way through they go in the long charge down, but you can see there's Zanoun going deep once again. The car not settled, the Mercedes under braking, but getting ready for iceback, and then on through into München they go through the double ride, and will McCluskey here back within 2.5 tenths, but can he find a way to just get alongside here and force the move, or will he have to wait? That will be the challenge as he heads into the ice curve, coming on through the left-hander here, and as he does, can he find the move? I don't think he can, staying within 2.5 tenths as they roll the way down through the Flansgarden Irons and heading all the way in the charge now, and going into Flansgarden Drive very shortly after the jump. Well, this is where McCluskey now wants to get as close as he dares to dream to do so, as he might have an opportunity going into the Schwalbenschwanz corner as they make the way through the Stephan Wessels S sequence, and where you see the Mercedes able to pull away, and Zanoun just feeling confident in the car in terms of how he can point a straight line there, but under braking you see that Mercedes very unsettled, and going in to the Travel's corner there, and Zanoon makes a mistake. His car goes round, and McCluskey dodges the wayward Mercedes, and well, with that, it is going to be a moment for Akram Zanoon to be certain, and drops down the orders. He turns the car back around, but Akram Zanoon now trying to recover the car, and this could just be the gold lead battle. We're blown wide open with the fact that it's going to cost him a lot of time to get back to the pits, and the car that has definitely seen better days. And on top of that as well, as he makes his way on through the right-hander Goldenkopf, you've now got to imagine he'll have that pressure of knowing he's lost all the time, and as the driver he'll be thinking, I think, that in his mind that he can't let that pressure get to him. But once you make mistakes like that, and multiple mistakes in quick succession, it all compiles, it all gets in your head, and that is the problem for Akram Zanoon right now. He won't want to be in that mental space. With half an hour of races to go here at the Nürburgring, still plenty of racing action to come, as we say hello there to Buzz Luke here in the YouTube chat, and we can see Sailboat 58 there in the Twitch chat asking Shun Zanoon pit to fit that rear wing, and indeed I suspect he will become the end of this lap, as we've also heard that Gianni Tahar has come into the pits recently. In fact, I think he's been towed to the pits, and we'll give you an update on what exactly has happened to Gianni Tahar very shortly, as he has had to be towed, and we'll get a replay of the incident. There comes Zanoon out to the final corner, and does he come on in? He does, as Michael McCluskey goes on for another lap. So McCluskey decides to go even deeper into this race, and Zanoon right now will get the quick fast repair in, and also most likely I think he might opt to put on a new set of tyres in order to give himself all the pace to the end of the race. But definitely right now holding on by a thread here for the lead of the gold class, and this race has been blown up wide open. But now we take a look back at what exactly happened to Gianni Tahar. Well, the Quad Dash race driver at the time running what was a P6 in the gold class, gets it wrong there, coming on through, and I do believe, in terms of where that has gone wrong, that was in the run after mid curve, and before he could get his way into the right-hander of Nordschleife, and that was gone very, very wrong there for the Quad Dash racing drivers. Had to try and get the car turned on around, and well, in the end, with the damage he's picked up, it's led to him having to be towed to the pits as that car struggled. That was before mid curve. That was going up through what's Kesselchen into Klosterol, where the car went on round. So Tahar at the end just couldn't get the car pointed in a straight line anymore. Now had to be towed, and that's why he's down in P8, and well, he has to spend time in the pits. And for those who are not used to the way that iRacing works with regards to the cars being towed, when a driver does get towed back to the pits, there is a tow time delay, and it depends on where you are on circuit relative to where you are in the pits in order to simulate how long it would take the car to be towed back to the pits in real life, albeit it's done in minutes rather than hours necessarily, and therefore that is why Tahar is still in the pit lane currently in P8, waiting for the car to essentially be towed back into position, and then repair work can be done with a fast repair. And also I expect he'll put some fuel in the car and go on to try and finish the race. But as we do come back to live pictures here, meanwhile into the pit lane for his final pit stop, in fact coming out of the pits now is Russell Fowler, as we see there John O'Cook saying managing two drivers catching each other, it's quite fun, in reference to Russell Fowler and Tom Bingham. And in fact I believe that Fowler and Bingham have swapped places effectively, with the gap being 10 seconds between the two of them, as Bingham makes his way down the start finish straight and in towards turn number 1. But Fowler has made that move, stick moves up to P4 in the silver class, and with the fact right now it's only 13 seconds between himself and Nestor de la Fuente, I think Fowler feels as though he's got an outside chance here of taking what would be a silver podium after all is said and done. But as Bingham charges his way down into turn number 3, a bit of a lonely world for Bingham at the moment for the Performance Link Esports driver. In fact, he hasn't really got anybody to see in front of him, but he's still got plenty of time to drive behind in the form of Paul Williams, where he heads into the early hairpin here, where is essentially the short layout of the GP loop. The early hairpin used typically for that, and therefore club level racing. Meanwhile, we do look to Nigel Stark as he makes his way on through turns 4 and 5 of the GP loop there. We have also got Jordan Baybois still in the pit lane, and Baybois still being repaired, as we're to understand it. That Ferrari definitely has seen better days. I look at my commentary booth window. Well, half an hour still to go here, and with the time remaining, anything can happen before this is all over. And already we've seen that with Akram Zanoon having that major error. He is back out onto circuit, having taken that extra pit stop. He's down in P3 in the gold class now, and was effectively 40 seconds off of the class leader of Victor Chamorro. And will we believe with Chamorro and McCluskey due a pit stop that Zanoon will retake the lead, or he'll be very close to retaking it, but we'll have to wait and see how it plays out in practice. But as Nigel Stock makes his way on the rest of the GP loop and on towards turn 13, they'll see him emerge onto Nordschleife loop We did mention earlier on about the fact that you will see a lot of graffiti on the circuit. You see some there going into the opening corner, the Sabine Schmidt curve, and you may be wondering at this point, where's that graffiti in reference to? Well, some of it there is from individuals who visited the circuit over the years, and they've left their mark saying that I was here, or myself and my partner were here, but also a good amount of that graffiti is also in reference to drivers who we have lost over the years through what has been the best part of almost a centenary of racing at the Nürburgring Nordschleife loop. Indeed, the loop becoming available, if my memory serves me correctly, in the 50s to go racing around here, and really motorsport moving away from the loop in terms of Formula 1 and whatnot come the late 70s. And well, this circuit has seen the loss of a good number of lives. A good amount of that graffiti on the circuit will be in honour of those who've lost their lives here from club level all the way through some of the very highest levels in motorsport. But as Stock makes his way all the way out towards Arenberg corner, meanwhile Gianni Tahar emerges from the pit lane, and as he does, is in P7, still ahead of Jamie Dory then by what is 1 minute roughly. But right now Gianni Tahar trying to push on here and get the car on home, albeit the Quad Dash Racing driver knowing that this race is going from good to bad to worse based on the form, but he won't want it to become a nightmare anytime soon. He wants it to stay far away from that, I'm sure. And as he comes on through at the Mercedes arena and heading in towards turns 4 and 5, making his way on out here, and still plenty of time to go, and anything can still happen with regards to racing where it's all said and done. Meanwhile, we do look from him to the driver just in front of Sean Scooter, and with the CSA blue driver currently second place in the bronze class with a 2 minute and 9-second gap to the class leader of Nigel Stark. And well, they've both made their second scheduled pit stops, and Stock right now very firmly in control of this race as Jordan Babois leaves the pit lane. And well, he has left the pit lane, is at least a lap down on his peers in the bronze class, but still trying to make it on home in P9 to get some points on the board. And indeed, finishing the race always guarantees you some points typically, whereas an earlier retirement before the first half of the race is concluded means you will be classified as a non-finisher and no points available to you. But meanwhile, we do look to your overall leader and your silver class leader with it. And well, one thought process here. If Alfonso Marin doesn't make any mistakes, given the fact he was only 13 seconds down on what was at Kremsnoon when Snoon made his fatal error, could Alfonso Marin be on course for making it the first ever silver class winner overall in the NXTGEN Racing GT3 League? Just hold that thought in the back of your minds, ladies and gentlemen. As far as I remember, we have never seen in the NXTGEN Racing GT3 League's history a driver of a lower class. So in the olden days, what would have been the pros versus the pros versus the AMs, we have never seen a driver of one of the lower classes take an overall win. But could we see history made here today in Germany at the Nürburgring City Circuit, in the fact that Alfonso Marin right now in control of this race? One pit stop still to come. We believe it's got to be on this lap. If it's not this one, it will be on the next one, as otherwise that fuel tank is going into the end. And well, we're going to wonder how he's got all the fuel in that car. Well, it's going to be some incredible fuel saving. I can tell you also that meanwhile in the battle for who is the leader of the gold class, well, out on circuit without considering strategy, Victor Schmorr has been reeled into the clutches of none other than Benjamin McCluskey, who now is within 0.6 of a second as the two drivers make the way out to Galgenkopf and onto the Dottinger Straight, charging the way on down now and all the way out towards Tiergarten they go. And will they make the way past what is known as the Touristen foreign pit lane? Indeed, if you look to go out on this circuit in your own car, you can do, as it is technically an official toll road. It's the world's fastest toll road, as has been built by a number of individuals, including what is a Luke Scott video. A very interesting one, definitely worth watching that if you want to know a bit more about this circuit as a toll road. But as Victor Schmorr makes his way on down through the left hand there under the Bilstein Curve Bridge and up towards what is Tiergarten. Well, right now the Spaniard under major pressure from McCluskey, but keep in mind as well, they are only 45 seconds together at Kremsnoon. Both of them were a pit stop to go, so we could see a three-way fight for the gold lead come the end. In fact, they're both going to come into the pits now, and well, now it's all going to come down to who has the faster pit stop and then where Zanoon fits into the mix. As also Alfonso Marin has come in, and he was 40 seconds up the road from them. So in fact, he leaves the pit lane, and Alfonso Marin is going to go on to retake the overall lead of this race. We are very much now, ladies and gentlemen, on the potential threshold of witnessing our first silver class overall winner, as Marin right now just in a world of his own at the front of the field. But meanwhile, in the battle of the pit stops, they both are stationed now, both cars up on their jacks. McCluskey and Shimaro both being serviced there, and we're waiting to see where they come out. And also the question is, where it's Akram Zanoun, as he makes his way through the final couple of corners here. The stationary pit times for Shimoda McCluskey currently extending up to almost 20 seconds. It is going to be close, but I think Zanoun will retake the lead of this race with just over 20 minutes to go. But how much of a gap will he have as he makes way on down? It's McCluskey who's come off of the jacks first. Zanoun makes his way on down. Meanwhile, McCluskey makes his way out the pit lane, and look at how that instant for Zanoun and that extra pit stop has completely obliterated that lead he built up, and McCluskey re-emerges P2. He's leapfrogged Shimoda on strategy, and in fact, in terms of the leapfrog, he gained 4 seconds in the pit lane based on stationary time versus Shimoda. So right now, McCluskey versus Zanoun is the battle for the gold lead. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that when these two were running in clear out, McCluskey and Zanoun on average was 2 seconds a lap faster compared to McCluskey, and will that still be the case on this final stint, given the fact that Zanoun will be wary of pushing it too hard, but at the same time he'll know that there is the threat of McCluskey behind, so it is going to be a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for Zanoun, in the fact that he right now will not want McCluskey getting close, but in order to do so, he's going to have to really push the car. But meanwhile, coming in from P2 the silver class here is Néstor Del Fuente, and you can see it just behind him, and with a 2.5 minute gap to Russell Fowler already for these two right now, a 6-second gap between them on pit entry. It does come down to that pit stop time and seeing who is going to be the runner-up in the silver class, as they both make their way to a halt, and Russell Fowler carries on, and in fact Russell Fowler takes the P2 back there, so correction, it'll be the battle for P3 in the class in the end, as Fowler comes on through, weaving his way on for the apex there of turn number 1 and up towards turn 2. In fact, Bingham comes through as well, so our timing tower there not completely accurate with regards to when the drivers have come in to the pits versus the relative delta, so apologies there for the misstep on the statement. And it looks like Performance Link Esports making it a 2-3, that's their target, and you can see it emerging from the pit lane now, and as he does so, Néstor Del Fuente finally comes off the jacks but loses the place to Jochen Seeger, who goes up to P4, as now Fuente making his way on down there as he crosses the pit exit line, getting himself back up to speed, but he'll be scratching his head as to how Seeger has had a pit stop that was 9 seconds faster, in fact 10 seconds faster compared to Del Fuente, and well, that's how the strategy has been done for Speedline Esports, and Jochen Seeger right now I think will feel as though this top 5 finish is definitely well within grasp, and indeed with a gap of what is only 23 seconds to Bingham. If Bingham makes a single mistake, and Jochen Seeger could even be on the podium. As we look from Néstor Del Fuente back to Russell Fowler, well, right now he is a growing margin of 13 seconds clear of teammate Tom Bingham, and Fowler, he would be hoping that he could have gone and taken the fight to Alfonso Marin today, but Marin in a class of his own, and well, Fowler not quite able to match the pace of our race leader currently with 20 minutes still left on the clock. And once Fowler makes his way now on to the Nordschleife loop, he'll know that all he needs to do here is keep the car safe along the road as he heads through Hatzenbach and into Hoorhaken. And if he does here, it's going to be huge points. And again, with Sergio Gonzalez-Martin currently P9, and also on top of that, Tristan Engelstad at P7, this round, if it all finishes as it currently stands, is going to massively benefit Fowler and see him open up a major championship lead, which then his rivals will need to close down in the final 3 rounds of the season in the weekly triple header. But as Fowler makes his way up towards Flugplatz, meanwhile, we do look to Jamie Dory. We're trying to make some more overall places. He chases after Wesley Lewin here, and to show you the overall standings on the left-hand side of your screen, as they come on down through at Flugplatz Zwei, and Dory there mounting the apex curve going into the fast run, and indeed the car bouncing into the air there. He's got to be careful, that NXTGEN Racing Team Pink driver, in the fact that he gets it wrong and then the car is going to let go. Tristan Engelstad into the pits for his final pit stop of the day, but Dory here very close to the back of Lewin as he looks up the inside. Wesley Lewin keeping in mind his P3 in the bronze class, one of course for his best performance of the season, and as they head up towards what will be Galgenkopf corner, well, Dory will wait here for the run on to the Tossenhohe Straight. And no, in the meantime, there's no value in trying to force a move early. We can just do it on the slipstream potential as he makes his way on through. But as he charges his way up towards what will be Tiergarten, a long run here, will Dory gradually now starting to creep out for the move. Meanwhile, a bit further up the road, we do have a battle between Néstor Del Fuente and Gavin Gardner for P10 overall. Well, you can see only a second up the road now after taking a bit of an off track, but as they make their way on through Ehrenberg. Meanwhile, we do look back to Dory versus Lewin here as they head on through the left-hander. A little bit of a rub there between the two of them as they go through the kink, but Dory there holding the outside. Contact between the two. Lewin's into the wall, and Dory there survives it by comparison. And Wesley Lewin right now well, I don't think he'll be too pleased with how that's played out, but can he get it to the pits, or will it be a tow? Because he's literally only about 300 metres from the pits, and if it's a tow, it's going to be a long time, and it is a tow for Wesley Lewin, and that's going to cost him what will be a podium here today, in the fact that now it will be Alex Rogenbach who will be taking over that third place spot in the bronze class, and whilst the privateer makes his way on around here and rolling his way right now onto the dotting high. I don't think he's going to quite believe this. He's yet to notch what is a podium in the bronze class, but today he could just do it on home soil if he keeps it on the straight and narrow, and with a gap of what is 13 seconds to Elwyn Sykes, I think he will start to really believe that this is coming to a reality. But as we look back to the class standings once again, ladies and gentlemen, there's that confirmation as he is 3 minutes and 5 seconds down on Sean Scooter, but with that advantage over Elwyn Sykes right now, things are looking up for the number 70 Lamborghini, as we can see Rogenbach makes his way on through, and well, as he does so, and meanwhile tries coming to the end of another lap, well, we can look to it. Nesta Fuente here is halfway round the current lap, and he has Gavin Garner all over the back of him. The two P5 drivers in the respective classes, the silver ahead of the gold class driver. Well, right now, will De La Fuente battle this, or will he simply let it go? I suspect he will be encouraged to let it go, given the fact there's no value, there's no extra points in battling with a driver another class, and they're lifting off on their own to Bergberg after Lauda links, and Garner going up the inside there and taking the overall position of P10 off of De La Fuente. But as they head onwards now towards what will be the run to mid-curve, meanwhile, the gap between these two will gradually start to open up in the other direction, with Wessels pulling, well, not Wessels, my apologies, Gavin Garner pulling away, and Garner critically ahead of Wessels for his championship campaign, albeit by only one place with 42 seconds. So Garner will know he'll regain some ground on Stephan Wessels, albeit not the ground he would have liked by comparison, as they head their way onwards towards what will be the corner, and now coming through at the left hand they have, and up towards what will be the Nordschleife complex. Meanwhile, we do look from there back to Alex Rogenbach once again here, as will the privateer taking over that P3. We still do have Wesley Lewin in the race, however, he's come back out in P6, albeit he's lost a lot of time as a result of that tow to the pit. But Lewin will be absolutely furious with the fact he did seem to be in a very safe P3, and it's all gone incredibly wrong. But meanwhile, looking from them, we do look to Alfonso Marin, as right now the KFM Motorsport red driver heads on to what will be another lap, and where it's only fair. We promised you a lap of the circuit earlier on today, ladies and gentlemen, and let's take you through one with Alfonso Marin. Making his way down towards turn number 1 and getting ready to brake for the Yokohama S chicane hairpin here, as he comes all the way down to first gear, braking the 100 meter board as he clears the corner, using the preload differential there to rotate the car onto the throttle up into second gear, into Mercedes Arena, nice and on the apex here, use the curb to turn the car through, and now down into turn number 3, down to second gear, put the left hand side tyres on the apex curve there, rotate the car, bring it over to left before snapping back to the right hand, returns 4 and 5, the double right here with its twin apexes, and now up towards the hairpin at turn number 6. Head onto the brakes here at the 100 meter board, about 110 metres, down to second gear, V-shape approach to the double apex hairpin, as he makes way out of 6 now up into turns 7 and 8, the first left-hander here, braking about 75 metres from corner apex in third gear, and now in towards the right-hander, and coming on through here, down through turn number 8, as you can see just building up the speed gradually there in third gear, powering up the gearbox now as he goes up into fourth, and charging into fifth gear, flat out run through the kink of 9, and then up in towards turns of 10 and 11, where he gets ready to go onto the brakes here, breaking out the 50 meter board into the fast version of V-Dog, goes a little bit deep there, and has to hook the car just in time, and now going into the turn 13 left-hander that brings him onto Nordschleife loop, nice late apex there, and now clearing the GP loop, immediately braking there, about 100 metres from corner apex into Sabine Schmidt curve, with the downhill drop there, meaning he has to brake much earlier than planned, and now making his way onwards towards the fast-flying sequence, which starts to Hatson back. The right-hander here flat out will bring it over to the right-hand side for the left into right complex. So Hatson back onto the brakes, trail braking down to third gear, and as he comes on through now, building up the throttle once again before going into the left complex that kicks off the run of Hoheiken, the series of mini chicanes, if you will. Now onto the brakes to the right into left that completes Hoheiken. Third gear all the way here as he uses plenty of apex curve for the right-hander, less so for the left-hander, and now flat out down the quiddle back of Hoa. And going through the right-hand kink, flat out here into run for Flugplatz, and let's listen in. Brief lift off the throttle, and then no lift off there, going through Flugplatz, flat out all the way through the right-hander, heading up to 150 miles an hour now, and going up into 6th gear, pushing all the way, and it's a long charge now, all the way up into Nürburg. But first, it's going to be Schrodenkreuz after he's cleared Cottonbon. In Schrodenkreuz corner now, the fast left-hander lift off the throttle, but keep a bit of throttle on to settle the car down. Stiff gear and braking 150 metres from corner apex into Nürburg here. Third gear, nice early apex, back on the throttle, and as he exits here now, charging up towards the compression. Coming down the hill, it's going to be Postbrooker first through the left into right, and then making its way into Futsero corner, and now into the compression here, flat out as he goes, 165 miles an hour onto the brakes with a little bit of traffic in the form of Daniel Fritz, breaking its way into Arnaud Force. Fritz moves to the outside there, and will carry on this lap, Marion now into Arnaud Force, the left into right, and will not touch any apex curves there. They'll only send the car around as he exits the corner and back onto full throttle, and now heading all the way up towards what will be the Metzgerfield sequence here as he goes into left-hander, and it will be a dab of the brakes and drop a gear to bring the car in. We're going onto the brakes here for the left-right chicane down to third gear, again avoiding those apex curves because they'll only bounce the corner and invoke understeer, but braking nice and early, 120 metres from Callanhard's apex, that very late apex you can see at the Deceptive corner, and as he now heads into the left-right chicane, a Spiegel curve, making his way on through and into Drive Track Rex here, opens the corner up, but bringing the car to the left-hand side, and as he does so, a nice run there, nice and early back on the throttle and braking into their side. You can't see the corner, you have to brake for it blind, and braking 250 metres from corner apex and then bringing the car on through. Well, Marion there keeping it nice and cool now as he makes his way on towards the second half of the lap. It all starts with Wes at Bridgeside, going on to the bridge here through left-hander in third gear, and then up towards X-Muller on to the right-hander, a dab of the brakes and staying third on the power as the dip in the road will unsettle the car otherwise, and as he powers his way now up towards Bergwerk. First it will be the run through X-Style, the right-hand king before the left-hand king of Lauder Links, and then on to the brakes here for Bergwerk corner, and here you need to keep tight to the apex. You do not want to go deep, as always you go to the exit curve. You saw what happened earlier to Jack Barker, as the car will just fall off that curb onto the grass and you'll lose control immediately, but Marion then nailing the corner as he makes his way in the run all the way up the hill, charging through Kesselchen, the left-handers, and then getting ready for the right-handers of Klosterol. Well, that's Kesselchen complete. Klosterol now coming up, flat out he goes, heads up into top gear here, topping out on what will be approximately 154 miles an hour with the rise up the hill, costing him a bit of top-end speed, and going into mid-curve corner here, it's going to be a downshift and lift down to fifth gear through the left, and now making its way up towards what will be a Steel Striker corner through the right and kick first, and as he clears the right now onto the brakes, he gets ready to come all the way down the gearbox to second gear through the right, and as he exits all the way through now and up towards what will be the Caracola Carousel, or the Carousel as it's properly known, and on to the brakes. They're braking nice and early, second gear, dig it in, make sure not to be ejected out from the cambered road surface, and as he makes his way on out now up towards Poston 147, and will flat out here initially, and it will be flat out in to the fast left-hander of Poston 147, but now he'll be on to the brakes here as he winds the car up. We're going into Wes Hall-Acton, the right-hander will be a little bit apex curb touch there from Man. You see he had to stop the car a bit more, as always the car would have gone straight into the wall, so Man with a small mistake, he now makes his way out to Hall-Act and in to Hedwig's Hour. It now begins the downhill descent here through the right into left, and then as he drops through the next right-hander and heading in to Whipperman here, and it's the two rights followed up by the left, which precedes the Icebank complex, and here is the run into Icebank as he makes his way out to the end of Whipperman, now left into right here, dropping the car on down and make his way through right in towards what will be a Brunschen corner here, or YouTube corner as it's known, as he mentioned. This is where you see a lot of drivers get it wrong on track days here at the circuit, and as he comes into left-hander of Ice Curve now, well, this lap almost over now in terms of all the hard parts as he charges down through Flansgard and Irons, flat out here, all the way down he goes, over the jump, lift off the throttle, then back onto the brakes immediately as he goes through the right-hander, and now going into Flansgard and Zwei here, the speed's now building at an absolutely atmospheric rate as he charges all the way through, flat out here with Stefan Beloff S coming on down and into what will be the braking zone very shortly, the trail braking zone that leads up to Schwalbenschwanz, drops down to fifth gear, down to fourth, brings the car down and in to the left-hander, and coming on through there down to third gear and making his way in to the left-hander of the Kleiner Carousel, or the small carousel, as it comes on through there, get on the power a little bit earlier in order to eject the car, settle the car back down from second into third gear, after fourth before running into Galgenkopf, staying in fourth gear, then just the dab of the brake to settle the car down and winding the car all the way for the long right-hander and on to the Dottenacher straight, and let's just listen to that V8 roar. as he makes his way down the straight, you may be wondering, why is he keeping the car over to the left-hand side of the straight? Well, you may notice the tree line on the left-hand side, and that is to offset the wind direction where the wind will blow onto the straight, and that tree line actually protects cars from the wind blowing onto the car. So therefore, Marion making sure not to lose any top speed as he comes down underneath from the Bilstein Bridge into Tiergarten at 169 miles an hour. On to the brakes he goes, down to second gear, and as he clears the last couple of corners, that is a lap of the Nürburgring Gesamtstrecke VLN layout, as brought to you by our race leader as he goes on to the final lap here today of Alfonso Mann, your silver class leader as well, and he is firmly on course to make history here when it comes to battling for what will be the overall win today as he charges wound through turn at number 1. And meanwhile, whilst this has been playing out, we have had events happen further on down, including what is the battle for P4 in the silver class between Jochen Siegert and Néstor de la Fuente. And they have exchanged the plays back and forth, and well, to show you that precisely, well, here's how the first move was made on lap number 14 by Néstor de Fuente on Jochen Siegert. And this was going into the left-hander of the Bilstein curves on the GP loop, and Siegert going a bit deep there and letting the place go. And then later on that lap, we saw a return move from Jochen Siegert versus De La Fuente, and this was in the run into Bridgeside corner, where Siegert on the inside there, and with De La Fuente going a bit deep, and Siegert making the move on the inside in return. They've still got one more lap to go here as they make the way on down there. By no means close to that final lap at the moment, making the way through Flansgarden and Zwei very shortly as they clear the jump, but as they roll their way on through, we have also had a further incident for Daniel Fritz, and also for, I do believe, Wesley Lewin, who has seen his race go to tatters after the contact with Jamie Doria earlier on. A very unfortunate for the bronze driver, who was of course for a third place bronze finish. But meanwhile, we stay with this battle between the two BMWs in the silver class, battling for P4 between Siegert and De La Fuente as they continue to wind their way towards the penultimate lap's conclusion onto that final lap. Just in front of them is Nigel Stott, the bronze class leader. He is 3 seconds ahead of them, but lapping faster by comparison. So therefore, right now, it would seem that these two are in a little bit of an isolated battle between them, but we don't mind that for the simple reason we do love to see last lap battles. But as they make the way into the dotting high, that gap now at 1 second, but De La Fuente will start to gain here in the tone. You can see already that gap coming down the bottom right corner of your screen with the battle box there showing it's already down to 9/10 as they clear the first third of the straight. But as he gets closer and closer, De La Fuente will know that toe is going to become ever more powerful as he gets win, particularly 5/10 of closing, and that's where the toe really comes into its element. But as they make the way into the left-hand king underneath the Bilstein Bridge, we'll come back to this battle, that's the promise. But meanwhile, we do look to what is Benjamin McCluskey, and right now P2 in the gold class behind Akram Zanoun, still trying to chase down the gold leader, albeit Zanoun breaking away. And in fact, over the last couple of laps, Zanoun has been opening that lead back up at a rate of 5 seconds a lap. Zanoun is holding nothing back as meanwhile into the pits I look at my commentator window is Gavin Gardner for the last time today. Not enough fuel in the car, it would seem, for Gavin Gardner, and well, will that release Stephan Wessels into a position in front of him? It's going to be close between the two of them. Albeit Gardner is in service, but Wessels is making his way through Tiergarten right now. In fact, he's going on to the start for this straight, so we may see a swap here. I think Gardner is going to be safe as he leaves the pit lane. In fact, here is Gardner, and will the NXTGEN Racing Team pink driver makes his way out. Wessels is not going to be too far behind. In fact, Stephan Wessels is only the best part of 4 seconds behind, if that. So therefore, Gardner right now will be under pressure to try and keep Wessels at bay come the very end. But I think Gardner just not having enough fuel to get the car to the end of the race. But meanwhile, between Néstor de Fuente and you can see it's a move up the inside there into the short hairpin to De La Fuente, and he gets the P4 bag. But these two now will be batting one another all the way to the very end of this race, and I think Siegert will want to try and come back before this is all said and done as we ride aboard and look back from the rear of the Kevin Motorsport yellow car. But Siegert there making a mess of what was the second part of the Bilstein curve section, and with that the gap has opened up by a whole second, well, to a whole second now by comparison as they make the way in to the fast version of the Vidal chicane. So I think they're Siegert now having to try and find his way back in. He's got the whole Nordschleife loop in which to do so, and these two are very even when it comes to the loop, and indeed worn tyres here and tyre lengths at ours will be the difference between the two drivers as they head on through the speed sprint curve and begin their journey. As they charge their way on down and around, heading on towards what will be Hasselback first and foremost. Well, meanwhile, we do look from them back to your gold class leader of Akram Zanoun, and right now, 90's not leading overall. I don't think he'll be too precious about that, all things considered, given the fact he's avoided the scare in order to still be leading in the gold class, and that lead up by almost 15 seconds now over McCluskey. He really has been the man to beat in the gold class in terms of pace here. If you exclude Stephan Wessels' absolutely phenomenal laps, albeit he's put in a 50.97 on his previous lap, but it has been an invalidated lap, and therefore it's not the fastest lap of the race. The fastest lap currently does sit in the hands of Akram Saloon with a 51.27 according to our data sheet. And well, this man right now absolutely possessed to make sure he wins in the gold class here today, and also picks up the fastest lap, which will be at 2 points because there was no pole position lap today, rather than the standard 1 point for the fastest lap and then the 1 point for the pole position in class if we did have qualifying. But looking back here to La Fuente versus what is Seeger as they make the way through Nürburgring corner. And well, nothing between them thus far, as in fact Seeger has got within 6 tenths here as they wind their way on down towards the compression. But it's interesting to see how Seeger not really closing that much in the first third of the lap, and I would imagine that potentially they're very even, these two drivers there, but we'll start to see when we get to the more technical second third, which we're now in, starting with Ardenau Forst here, we might start to see that gap either open up or close, depending on who gets the better of the quarters. And De La Fuente there gains 2 tenths as he clears the left into right sequence. Now heading up towards Metzgertsfeld. We have got a little bit of traffic in front of the former Nigel Stock. That traffic has come within 2 seconds now, and we'll Stock there, I think, will be mindful of what's going on. He won't want to lose overall position P8. It'll be one of his very first overall top 10s in quite some time for Nigel Stock. But as De La Fuente here makes his way on through Cannon Hard corner, 8 attempts to 7 attempts it falls, and right now see it trying to come back here as they head into Dry Flat Rex, but again it's all back and forth, and that dirty air will not help the number 248 car of Speed 9 Esports as Jochen Seeger at all, and he'll have to try and offset that dirty air even more as he does now get within what is 5 attempts there going on through the exit Dry Flat Rex, but the gap opens up once again for a brief moment as it Constantina's back and forth between the hairpin of Seifert and going into Breitscheid. But as they make their way on towards what is now the final third of the lap very soon. Meanwhile, we do look from them to Sergio Gonzalez Martin, who's into the pits once again for another pit stop. So this is an emergency stop. He's not got enough fuel. For Gonzalez, it will relegate him effectively to P9 in the silver class. And, well, it confirms that he will be losing some major points today. And Russell Fowler, with that P2 on the cards, will feel as though it is all wrapped up very nicely and packaged very well. But meanwhile, as we look to your bronze leader, Nigel Stock, right now, his race absolutely faultless to a T. It must be said, as he makes his way on through into Klosterol corner very shortly, and then it will be a much curve. But as he winds his way up the hill, we've had one man who's already found his way a long way down the hill, and he's already heading towards the final part of the Dottinger Straight. And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, your silver class leader, your overall leader as well, of Alfonso Marin for KFM Motorsport Red. And as he makes his way into Tiergarten for the final time under racing conditions today, the grid's going to get bigger. For as he makes his way from the right into left, there's not been a single major error from this man today. He has been faultless to a T, and as the checker flag waves, it's Alfonso Marin in the number 5 Mercedes AMG Evo who takes the win overall in the silver class for KFM Motorsport Red to make series history with the first non-top class overall win here today. And then it will be approximately 27 seconds and a half behind very shortly Akram Zanoun, who makes his way on through to take the gold class win and the runner-up spot overall here today, with one critical error costing him what would have been a perfect race. But still, he'll take the win, and know those championship points continue to flow in for the number 94 driver. Congratulations to him for his gold class win, and a deserved one at that. And then we will see Benjamin McCluskey coming through to round of the overall podium, a second place in the gold class, and the next generation Team Purple driver really has been the best of the rest in the gold class today, as he takes the position there, 14 seconds clear of what will be Victor Shimara as he comes to finish his race here for the KFM Motorsport yellow team in the number 69 Ferrari 488 Evo. And as he comes on through, it will be a P4 overall. But as he winds his way on down, we then do have Joe Newman a further 14 seconds behind. And as the Audi R8 debut has come all the way from the back of the field, ladies and gentlemen, he's going to finish P5 overall and 4th place of the gold class. That is no mean feat for Empire Motorsport. But as he heads on down, we then do have a sizable amount of time before our next race finisher will come on through, and it will be Russell Fowler,
as he powers his way on down the Nottingham straight, charging for Performance League Esports currently, and will the number 16 driver here, knowing now that this result is going to elevate him to new heights in the Silver Class Championship. It's not a win, and he'll be mindful of that and know that Alfonso Marin was in a different world today, but at the same time, he's come through the field from the back of it, excluding the Speed9 Esports pair of Williams and Seeger, who had to start from the very back of the Silver Class as they yet to be placed in the Silver Class Championship. But instead, Russell Fowler didn't let it perturb him. He picked off one place by one and also made the most of opportunities that were presented to him when others fell apart. And as he makes his way out of the final corner, he will take second place here in the Silver Class. And with P6 overall, a deserved runner-up spot in the Silver Class for the Performance League Esports driver as Fowler completes his journey there. And then it will be a further, 30 seconds back very shortly. It will be there none other than Tom Bingham, who will be bringing home a 2-3 for Performance League Esports in the number 11 at BMW M4. He's got a sizable gap to Wes de la Fuente, and will be feeling safe now with regards to getting the car to the finish line, as we do see the number 11 make its way to its checkered flag, and he rounds off the silver podium there. Congratulations to Tom Bingham, a great drive. And then it will be Nigel Stock who comes on through with a little bit of pressure on Wes de la Fuente, but he will take P8 overall in the end. And Nigel Stock from Cresta Autosport is your bronze class winner here today in an absolutely flawless drive for the number 30 driver for the United Kingdom. And Wes de la Fuente will finish behind in their P4 in the silver class, P9, where you can see it rounding off the overall top 10 there. P5 in the silver class. It was a great battle between him and Wes de la Fuente to the very end. Garrett Gardner finishes P11, P5 in the gold class there for the NXTGEN Racing Team Pink driver, and then Stephan Wessels just behind in an absolutely tumultuous start to the day, and we're a bit incensed with the fact it didn't work out in the open lap, but still fighting back to a P6 in class, a damage limitation with it. Sean Scudder will very gradually be coming on home for what will be the second spot in the bronze class, albeit right now he does need to clear the dotted line straight as he clears the blind carousel, but he makes his way on through. Will still plenty of time to go here for him, and well, we'll follow all the drives through until they finish their races, ladies and gentlemen. It's the right thing to do for them all, and well, as Scudder makes his way down the dots in a high, it definitely has been an eventful race for CSA as a whole, with one of the drivers retiring on the open lap at turn number 4 in the form of Chris Shorter. We've also seen a major heartbreak at CSA today in the bronze class, with Wesley Lewin in contact with Jamie Dory at Tiergarten in what was the mid portion of the race, seeing his podium chances absolutely dashed to the wind. Sean Scudder will still be bringing on home a P2 in the bronze class. There's no question about it, unless he runs out of fuel. Albeit, goodness me, I hope we don't see that, but it can happen. But as he makes his way through, takes a little bit of grass with him there as a souvenir, and making his way up through the last couple of quarters here. And it will for sure Scudder. It's not a win, but it's some huge points to the board, and it puts him a bit closer to the top step of the championship, as being held currently by Daniel Fritz. And will Scudder there brings on home that second place of the bronze class. And then for CSA Blue, the number 12 at BMW M4 makes its way home, and then it will be Gianni Tahar who finishes in what will be P7 in the gold class there, and I do believe at P14 overall. Just in front of him was Jordan Baybois, who in the end finished what was P9 in the bronze classes. Here we can see what was multiple laps down the end after that major repair work, but the privateer still staying in it to win it, no question about it. And then we saw Tristan Engelstad finish his race P6 in the silver class, holding off what was in the end Paul Williams, who finished P7 in the silver class there for Speed9 Esports. We've also quite recently now got Lee Horn making his way towards the end of his race, albeit making his way down the Dottinger Hohen now, so he's got some way to go. We've still got 5 drivers out there, ladies and gentlemen, all coming to the end of their respective races and pushing on here, and Lee Horn a very heavily wounded portion on, and so you can see that front bumper definitely with a few bumps and scrapes, and also the front left wheel arch falling away from the car. So therefore not in a good place, but hopefully he's able to get it home here, and I think he will be able to do so as he comes on through the kink and in towards Tiergarten. We'll just see him make his way into the final major braking zone of today. And as he safely navigates it, it will be, as he emerges from the final corner, a P17 overall and a P8 to the silver class. Not to be his day today for Lee Horn for NXTGEN Racing, but still weaving from side to side there. 90's made it home, and that is an achievement in of itself, and he'll be pleased with that one, no doubt about it. But meanwhile, a little bit further down the order,
We have got a bit of a battle here for overall position between Davide Fava and David Camano as they make their way into Flansgarden Zwei, and as they roll the car on through and down right now. We're on the charge here, and I can see there Sailboat 58 asking, did Marin win overall? He did indeed, and the silver class winner, as we will see confirmed very shortly. And we do look to the overall results, as we always do. You'll see that confirmation of Marin bringing home a stellar win at the front of the field. But still, we look at these last couple of battles here as Camano trying to find his way into what be a P20 versus Davide Fava overall, but he can't quite find it at the moment. As they wind the way on through and up towards the Gallenkopf corner, and well, at this point it will all come down to a battle on the toe. And well, can we see Fava hold on here, or will he lose out in the drag race? It's going to be close between the two Audi powered machines, but Camano gets the better run off the corner. But you can imagine that now it will be for what is Fava to try and cut his way back in behind, albeit of a rear wing that's definitely looking as though it's not pointing straight. But whilst they battle, meanwhile making his way to the end of his race, ladies and gentlemen, it's Sergio Gonzalez Martin who'll be finishing at P9 in the silver class in the end, P18 overall in a difficult day for the KFM Motorsport Yellow Championship contender of the silver class, but still he gets it on home and knows the damage has been done to his championship campaign. And making it on through the final corner here, ladies and gentlemen, how about a good news story for you? Alex Rogenbach will take his first bronze class podium of the season. The privateer brings the number 70 Lamborghini Huracan Evo home, P3 in the bronze class, and what is P19, his best result thus far by a margin. You see his flashing lights there, he's pleased with it, and everyone definitely is pleased in the paddock. And then David Camano will hold on to P10 the silver class in the end, P20 overall ahead of what is our penultimate finisher in the form of Davide Fava for CSA Blue, and number 46 driver there, P4 in the bronze class. So some good points on the board, but we still do have one more driver to make his way home, ladies and gents, but it's Elwood Sykes, and as he makes his way over the rise on the Dottingham Hard, we're almost there for all of our drivers, and all of them deserve a round of applause. And indeed, to those of you staying here to see every one of them making their way across the finish line, well, you're a champion in yourself, because that's what it's all about here. Everybody taking the checkered flag here today is a winner in their own right. And as Elwood Sykes makes his way out to the final corner, he will take P5 in the bronze class. He moves from side to side. He knows he's survived it and he's done it. He's got the t-shirt as well for it. And the CSA green driver there rounds off the top 5 of the bronze class, and P22 overall as our final finisher today. But as he gets ready now to park the car up and bring it back to the pit lane, will we take a look at the race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. And after 2 hours of racing in our 5th round of Season 4 of the NXTGEN Racing GT3 League, as brought to you on iRacing, we got to see in our endurance race for today, Alfonso Marin confirmed as your overall winner there for KFM Motorsport Red, and by 28 seconds at the end, he has made history in being the first non-top class driver to take an overall win, as far as my memory confirms. And Akram Zanoun comes home P2, your gold class winner there for KFM Motorsport Red. And it's a 1-2 for the team, major points for them in the team's championship, but for Zanoun, he'll be kicking himself for the mistake he made, which cost him the overall win and almost cost him the gold class win as well. But in the end, he was able to extend the gap up to 15.5 seconds versus Benjamin McCluskey. Well, McCluskey finishing at P3 there for NXTGEN Racing at Team Purple as second place of the gold class, and he held off Victor Shimaro to what was P4 there, with Shimaro in that 4th place position for KFM Motorsport Yellow. 9 at 14 seconds was the difference between the two of them. Joe Newman at P5 for Empire Motorsport. In the end, not quite on the gold class podium, but do keep in mind he finished what was a minute 10 off of the race winner in the end, or in the gold class he finished what was the best part of 43 seconds off, well, in fact 50, no, it was 43 seconds there, doing the mathematics great. And Joe Newman coming from the very back of the field from where he started, and the Empire Motorsport driver definitely showing his credentials today to be a threat in the latter half of this season. We've got Russell Fowler at P6 there, runner-up in the silver class, and the Performance Link Esports leading home a 2-3 ahead of teammate Tom Bingham there, who completed the silver class podium of Marin, Fowler and Bingham. P8 was Nigel Stott, your bronze class winner for today, and a fantastic drive from Crest Autosports, number 30 driver, and indeed not a fault to it, and indeed with that, just demonstrating how easy it can be in order to get it right, albeit I'd say it's far from easy, but he made it look easy. And then Nesta de Fuente for KFM Motorsport Yellow, and Speed9 Esports is Jochen Seger enjoying a little scrap between them in the end for P9 overall, and the battle for P4 in the silver class, where Jochen Seger in the efficient P5 in the silver class, and rounded off our top 10.
Best of SP11, Gavin Garner for NXTGEN Racing Team Pink. And now we focus on the rest of our podium finishers within the respective classes. And as we can see there, P13 overall, Sean Scooter, the CSA Blue driver, finishing P2 in the bronze class and picking up another podium and another trophy to add to his cabinet. And then a bit further on down the order, finishing P19 there overall and bringing home his first bronze class podium of the season. Alex Rogenbach there, the privateer in the number 70 Lamborghini Huracan Evo, and will in the end consistency proving key and not putting a single foot wrong, and will enjoying a great little battle with Jorge Santos, which after he found his way past Santos, released him to deliver the pace, which has put him in to that third place spot in the class. Now, going on to the drivers who finished a lap down, we can see Elwin Sykes was the last lead lap finish at P22 for CSA Green. And then finishing a lap down, we had both Jorge Santos and Wesley Lewin. Heartbreak for Wesley Lewin, the CSA Pink driver, losing out on the podium with that unfortunate incident midway through the race. And then finishing a further lap down, 2 laps down, Jamie Dory and also Daniel Fritz and Jack Barker. And then we can see a difficult day for a few other drivers as well. Jordan Baybois finishing at 4 laps down in the end, the privateer, but still making it to the checker flag, P28. And then our retirees of Mark Sykes and NXTGEN Racing Team Red. And as we did see what was 15 laps completed here today, it will mean that Mark Sykes did not complete over half the race distance and therefore will be classified as a non-finisher. And the same will apply for Team Racing Netherlands, Jan Krag, and also Chris Short there, with Short having that retirement on the opening lap. Now going on to the individual class finishing positions, we can see Akram Zanoon taking the win in the gold class in the end for KFM Motorsport Red by 14.3 seconds over Benjamin McCluskey. The NXTGEN Racing Team Purple driver following on through with KFM Motorsport Yellow's Victor Shabaro finishing P3 and therefore a KFM Motorsport 1-3 today. I think they would have been hoping they could have made it a 1-2-3 on the podium, but still they'll take those key points. And then Joe Newman at P4 for Empire Motorsport, and only was 14 seconds off of the podium in the end. And as we say, watch out for him. He's definitely now going to be a force to be reckoned with in round 6 onwards. Gavin Garner P5 in NXTGEN Racing Team Pink. A couple of early incidents cost him quite dear, but still finished ahead of championship rival Stephan Wessels. And the CSA Pink driver will know that his championship lead has been slightly cut into by his main rival of Gardner. And then finishing a further 1.5 minutes behind Gianni Tahar for Quad Dash Racing, who completed all the gold drives to finish on the lead gold lap, ahead of Jamie Dory, 2 laps down for the NXTGEN Racing Team Pink driver. And then we had the 2 retirements of Jan Krak for Team Racing Netherlands and CSA Blues Chris Shorter. Coming on to the silver class. And here we can see Alfonso Marin taking the win in for KFM Motorsport Red, and what a win to do it by 2 minutes and 9 seconds over your rivals, with Russell Fowler being the first of said rivals. P2 for the Performance Link Esports driver, head of Tom Bingham who finished P3, a 2-3 for the team. Huge points in their championship campaign, the team's championship, and major points for both of the drivers in their individual silver class championship campaigns as well. A further, 10 seconds behind, Nestor Del Fuente for KFM Motorsport Yellow, who came strong in the final stint of the race and managed to hold off Jochen Siegert to P4 in the end, with the debutant Speed9 Esports driver wrapping up the top 5 in a great demonstration on his home circuit. And then we see Tristan Engelstad P6 for Quad Dash Racing, more 7 seconds clear of Paul Williams for Speed9 Esports. And then at Lee Horn, Sergio Gonzalez, Derek Camano round off the top 10, and with it also round off the drivers who finished on the lead lap. And the driver who finished a lap down in the end, it was in fact 2 laps down, made for races Jack Barker, but still finishing the race and taking P11. Now lastly, coming on to the bronze class. And here we can see Nigel Stock confirmed your winner for Crest Autosport by a margin of 1 minute and 49 seconds over CSA Blues at Sean Scooter, with then Alex Rogenbach taking his maiden podium in the class there, the privateer, a further 3 minutes and 4 seconds behind, but still it doesn't matter about that gap. The team will be absolutely ecstatic about that one. And then Davide Fava a further 12 seconds back in P4 for CSA Blue, ahead of CSA Green teammate Elwin Sykes. The top 5 finished on the lead lap of the bronze class, and those who finished a lap down included Jorge Santos, Wesley Lewin, Daniel Fritz who finished 2 laps down, Jordan Baybois who finished 4 laps down, and then Mark Sykes who finished 8 laps down with the early retirement, and therefore, as he did not complete over half the race distance, will be classified as a non-finisher. But those are the finishing positions for our drivers, ladies and gentlemen, and again, subject to Stewart's inquiries, of course. But that concludes all of our racing here today at the Nürburgring, and what a race it has been. But it doesn't quite conclude our broadcast for today, of course, because coming up in approximately 10 to 15 minutes time will be our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers, and we'll get to hear what they thought of today's racing, so don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss said interviews that are coming up. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to get set for our post-round interviews. And today, we've only got one interview lined up, and that is Nigel Stock, our winner in the bronze class today for Crest Autosport, who brought home a superb and absolutely faultless win, and with his best overall finish of the season as well, with a P8 overall. But rather than talk about him, let's have him join us, and as he joins me in the interview room, we do say welcome to you, Nigel. Good evening, and what a race from yourself today. Faultless from start to finish, and as soon as you took the lead of the race, you just seemed to run off into the distance at the Nürburgring. I think then, ladies and gents, we may be having a slight technical issue. We are just going to look into it.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're coming through it loud and clear, Nigel.
It always works better if you unmute your mic, doesn't it?
That's no problem at all. But just saying there about the fact you just charged off into the distance state, and it looked so nobody was able to touch in the bronze class.
Yeah, I think a lot of the incidents at the start helped that. I mean, even I got involved in one at one point, but I managed to drive it. Well, I actually drove a lap with my steering like quite out of alignment. A good little pulling like steering to the left sort of, so the wheel was not straight, but I just went round with the meatball flag for a lap just to try and keep on a relatively pit strategy, so I didn't have to get I had to like stop an extra pit stop at the end to for fuel, but luckily I managed to not have to do that, so I managed to get away with it in the end.
Oh, goodness me. Well, a bit of a rough start compared to the latter half of the race, which looked very clear by comparison. But as we do look back at some of the early race pictures here, going into the round, of course, many a driver worried about the Nürburgring. Understandable given the scale and size of the circuit. But I have to ask for yourself, how did you feel going into the round? Did you feel as though you were ready for the challenge, or was it just wait to see how it goes come lap one?
Well, I think with it being an endurance, and obviously the cars lined up in reverse championship order, everyone's sort of mixed up where they're not exactly where they should be on pace. They're just where they are because of the championship. So I thought it might be a little bit of just try and survive the first few laps, and then see where we are then, and then sort of hopefully build from there, which is what I tried to do. Yeah, I mean, there were some bits where it's a bit more chaos than I thought it would be. It got a bit close, but I managed to keep the car clean for the first 2 or 3 laps, so that was always a good thing.
Well, indeed, keeping the car clean throughout most of the race, and in the early stages you started to make some early ground, and of course it being very difficult to overtake on the Nordschleife loop as a whole, and like you say, a few instances for drives as you made your way on through. But were there any particular places where you felt as though, bar the others on the Dottinger Hard, where you might be able to make moves, or was it just the GP loop where the moves could come?
Well, pretty much, yeah. As soon as you get off the GP loop, it's pretty much follow the leader until you get to the long straight. I'm not going to attempt to say what you just said because I'm going to butcher it. But yeah, it's just wait. I mean, I did do 1 or 2 passes down the long back straight, but yeah, there was no point even trying it beforehand because you're probably just going to end up putting yourself or someone else in the wall. It's not been waiting too much. Just wait and try and get a good run out of the corner and just try, because it's such a long straight that you're probably going to get past whoever it is from just sitting behind. Just make sure you're close enough when you're there.
Indeed, it makes sense. A game of patience in the end, but one you're very good at winning. And as we continue to look at the pictures here on lap number 1, where some drivers getting it wrong, but for yourself, not getting it too wrong to be fair, but a couple of little bumps and scrapes here and there. Of course, damage being a key part of the race day, and plenty of fast repairs available. And just with regards to driving under the meatball flag, was there any temptation at any point to think, okay, perhaps this needs to be towed, it's going to be too dangerous, or was it, okay, let's just back the pace off, we can get this home and make sure we don't fall a lap down unlike a good number of drivers?
Well, I don't. My instinct, I think someone lost it. Like, I went one way and they decided to go that way. So I got the beat, but it was quite near the end of the lap, and it was on like I think lap 4. So I just wanted to get to lap 5 because I wanted to get to 5, 6 to try and keep my fuel strategy. And at the beginning, I was, especially on the GP, I was taking it quite easy, trying because the wheel was quite, it was like a good, like, I'm not going to say regular degrees, but it was not very straight at all. So uh, and I was just taking it easy anyway. I thought I'll just get round this lap and then pit in and see where we are then. But as I got sort of through the lap, I was sort of getting used to it. I was actually starting to catch some cars in front back up again, so I was a bit surprised. But I did think about doing another lap, but I didn't want to risk getting disqualified for not pitting. I didn't want to take the risk, so I thought I'll just go in the lap after and get it all cleared, and then just sort of I save some fuel after that and see where I am to try and make sure that I could get to the end with just one more pit stop, which I did.
Indeed, and sticking it to that strategy you had in mind from the outset and making that strategy work, all a key part of your race today. We did see some drivers opt to try and go as deep as possible with regards to their first and second stints and really giving themselves only a 20-minute final stint. Was the temptation there for yourself to try and go one lap extra, particularly on your second stint?
Yeah, I think on the first one I only had about one more lap of fuel anyway, so I was gonna have to come in. The second one I think I had quite a few gallons left, but I just didn't quite have enough to do another full lap, so I thought I would risk it, just go in and then take a long, because I like to have fresh tyres. I mean, maybe not all people were taking tyres, but I prefer to have the fresh tyres, even if just you got to take them easy for the first good half of the lap or so to warm them up. But I thought that might give me a bit more of an advantage than uh, just doing the fuel at the end. So that's why I just sort of focused on that, really, having fresh tyres all the time.
Indeed, interesting you decided to go with the safe approach of taking the change of tyres in that pit stop there and, well, making sure not to lose what looked to be a certain path to victory in the brothers class. And I have to ask as well, with regards to that time in building up the tyre temperature and whatnot, how do you know as a driver when those tyres are in the zone? Is there a certain feeling you get at particular corners? Just explain to us what tells you, right, they're ready to go now.
Just be careful until until the feeling doesn't feel like because it's when it's cold they feel quite like you're like almost on ice sort of thing. So I just take it easy and I sort of give it a lap or so here. If it was like a smaller track, I'd probably give it 2 or 3 laps and then start pushing. But sometimes I get it wrong, and that's when I spin. But in the hole, I try not to, and just try and show this place respect, because it's a track that if you don't show respect, there's not really much runoff. So especially not on the GP loop. So if you make any silly, like one little mistake can be the difference between finishing first and finishing fifth. So I just tried to make sure I didn't make any mistakes and just focus on looking after the car, looking after the tyres, try and save as much fuel as I could, but if not, then just try and finish as best I could. I wanted to try and finish in the top 10 when I saw I was in the top 10. It would be quite a good place to finish. I felt like I deserved it. Managed to finish 8th, so I was proud of that as well. So good evening all round, really. For once, for me, it's not doesn't usually happen. Usually, I end up in something that I feel like I could have done better. But tonight, I felt like I got quite a good race and felt like I finished where I roundabout should have done.
Oh, most definitely. And like you say, luck's not always been on your side, but today, fortune was on your side, but also a huge amount of pace you brought to the table with you as you charged around the Nürburgring. And well, with this result, a win puts you right back firmly in contention for a top 5 finish in the season and puts you also in the hunt for what is a potential top 3 as a minimum. We've got 3 rounds to go, and in 2 weeks' time, I should say, we will be making our way to the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. How are you feeling for the visit to the UK?
Well, as it's not just obviously the home track for the season, but it's like the closest track to me, and I've been there a few times to watch some racing. So I would like to try and do really well there. I do enjoy the track as well. It's probably one of my favourite tracks. So hopefully I can get some more points. I think I still might have chance of doing quite well because obviously I missed Suzuka because I had some technical problems. So it might be quite interesting when the drop rounds are applied to see where everyone is. I think certainly after tonight it'll be certainly a lot closer up front. Maybe not with me, but some of the other guys because some of the guys that are at the top there didn't do so well, and some of the ones that are around or just in front of me did quite well. So hopefully it might be a bit more interesting, especially like I said when the drop rounds are applied.
Oh, indeed. We do look forward to seeing how you get on at Silverstone 2 weeks from today. But just before we do let you go, Nigel, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Well, to yourself again, another great broadcast for NXTGEN, doing great series for Crest Autosport for the livery, and obviously for me racing for them and friends and family, and anyone that's watching, whether they support me or not.
Well, Nigel, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room as always. Congratulations once again on a superb drive to victory and also an overall top 10 with that P8 overall. We look forward to seeing plenty more from yourself at Silverstone 2 weeks from now and see if you can get yourself right back into the hunt for that championship crown come the end of the season. But until then, have a fantastic rest of your evening and revel in your superb victory as of today.
Thank you, and yourself. Thanks. Bye.
So hearing that from Nigel Stock, our bronze class winner today, and really nailing today's race, and not without incident, as we did see in the replay pictures, particularly on lap 1, where it all went wrong for a number of drives going on through at Mutkurv corner and up towards Strecke. Nigel had to take to the grass and pick up some damage on the car, and as he went deeper and deeper into the opening stint on lap number 4, unfortunately we're not going to get to see that again now, but he did end up with an incident that did end up pushing the steering lock to one side, but he went on and drove his entire first stint with the damage and decided to suffice despite the meatball or the orange and black flag being waved at him. And to be fair, being able to bring the car in within a lap, so therefore able to take the car around legally, and in doing so being able to stay on his strategy, and well, it worked out in turn with the fact that he was able to come back out leading the race, and therefore with a car that was not just repaired but also on its strategy with the right amount of fuel. And from then on, all the laps continued to come on in lap after lap, and well, no mistakes in the end for Nigel Stock, and that's exactly where he's needed to be after a season that has typically, particularly for the first 3 rounds of the season, that has seen him being in some of the most horrific incidents that the racing has led to, in the fact he's just been in the wrong place at the wrong time and has normally fallen victim to them. Well, last time out it worked out quite well for him, and today going into the second half of the season it's definitely worked out fantastically. And well, given the fact he did miss the endurance race at Suzuka, he's been back on form here with his first endurance race round of the season, and with 3 rounds still remaining, could we see the Crest Autosport driver mount a late charge for the championship crown? My gut feeling says yes, we could, particularly if the results go his way next week. It'll put him right back up there with 2 rounds to go, so I should say in 2 weeks time, not next week, but you get the picture there. So he's going to be a man to watch out for in that bronze championship. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for tonight. We've heard just from the one drive tonight of Crest Autosport's Nigel Stock in the bronze class. Congratulations to him once again, and thank you to him for joining me in the interview room. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's broadcast and you'd like to know more about the NXTGEN Racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you want to be on the grid for a future series, or alternatively a future season of the GT3 League or other series we've got currently running, such as the NXTCC, or alternatively the Proto GT3 Championship, well, the best way to find out all about that and plenty more is to go to our website, and that is at nextgenracing.co.uk, and that website visible on screen currently is the home of clean and fair sim racing for all, and we've been hosting leagues for the best part of 17 years, and as we continue to grow and continue to push forward in our stride to make sim racing enjoyable for everybody from the amateur through to the esports professional, well, definitely it has not been a better time to join NXTGEN Racing, and we continue to look to expand our series as we head into the latter half of 2023. But if you don't want to go to our website and find out more, and perhaps you're a bit more of a social media person, you can follow us on Facebook. That's the best place to go to of social media aspect. And our Facebook group may be found at www.facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing. And there you can find out a little bit more about the staff and admin members that make up the NXTGEN Racing community, and find out about what we do both on the virtual circuit and also on the real world circuit, with a good number of our staff members being track marshals and some of them even being racing drivers. But now, ladies and gentlemen, our drivers will take 2 weeks rest but get themselves ready for a charge into the home of British motorsport with round number 6 on the Wednesday, the 6th of September, that should say there, not the 6th of August, and that does seem to be a little bit of a typo there, and we do apologise for that. But the key point being that we'll make our way to Silverstone for what is expected to be a phenomenal evening of racing, in respect with the sprint and feature combination. And come at the end of it all, we'll only have 2 rounds remaining afterwards, and who will be our championship leaders winding their way into the very last portions of the season, we'll have to wait and see. But Silverstone's always known to shake up and stir up the field when it's wide open racing surface, and on top of that as well, the fact that practically every corner and overtake is possible. But who will come out on top in Northamptonshire, we'll find out then. But until then, we've been NXTGEN Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.